Hey now, happy Monday afternoon. Welcome to 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, all here with you on this Monday afternoon. Short show today, guys. On for just 3 hours today. We got plenty to get to, though, in the next 3 hours as we lead you into a little K-State men's basketball coming up tonight. Cats looking for 2 in a row. They will be at home taking on the West Virginia Mountaineers. Pregame begins at 5 o'clock, so we are done right at 5 today. That game will tip off tonight at 6 right here on 580 WIBW. We've got plenty of college basketball from the weekend to get to as we get ready for K-State hoops tonight. Both KU and K-State were in action on Saturday, and both won. That was nice.
And handily, too.
Yeah, convincing, decisive wins for both programs.
KU game was over at halftime.
Yeah, that was awesome. I always say it never gets old beating Texas, but I guess it's going to have to get old beating Texas because
you might never get to do it again.
Yeah, they ain't playing each other anymore. So big win for KU and a big win for K-State as well. You want to talk about desperation for Kansas State. They've got to stack as many wins as they can down the stretch here. So big win for them. It'll be Spencer's first trip to Bramlage coming up tonight.
Yeah, the Octagon
of Doom.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Octagon of Doom. That's relatively new nomenclature that kind of started in the late 2000s, in the Michael Beasley era, early 2010s. So that's relatively new. In case anybody asks, you can say, that it dates back to then, and you can sound knowledgeable.
Yeah, so the nickname was popularized during the 09-10 season, but was first used in online forums as early as 2007.
There you go.
So there you go.
Yeah.
That would have been Michael Beasley. Yes. 07-08, right?
Yeah, I believe that is correct.
Yeah. So, man, 07-08, you would not believe the number of debates that were had instead of doing work in my, what would that have been, 7th grade math classroom as we debated who should the Bulls take, Derrick Rose or Michael Beasley. It got heated, let me tell you. Some of the hottest debates of all time.
I was having those same debates if I was doing so as the host of a sports talk show my senior year of college. So
I was like 10 years old.
Yeah, I was in 7th grade at the time. So that is coming up tonight. We'll preview that game as well. K-State versus West Virginia coming up later on today. Plenty of Chiefs to get to. Some big Chiefs news from earlier today. We'll touch on that and what it means for Big Red. Also, the NFL Combine, it starts today. We'll talk about that a little bit amongst ourselves, and we'll talk about it with Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated. He'll hop on at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour. As
I believe he just landed in Indianapolis.
I believe you are correct about that.
I saw that on Twitter earlier.
Yeah, so we will talk to Matt all about what's going on in Indy and other news and notes from around the NFL. Talk a little baseball later on this hour. There's a lot of talent still out there in terms of MLB free agents. Don't think the Royals will add anyone else, but
maybe they should.
What if they did? Would you complain? I certainly wouldn't. I would not complain about adding any other talent anywhere on this team. So we'll get to all of that, our headlines, what is wrong with you, much more coming up today on 580 Sports Talk. We'd love to hear from you. Hit us up on the YouTube comments in the YouTube stream. 580 Sports Talk is where you can find us on YouTube. Again, just go to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk. You can find the stream there. Comment section is open and rolling all day long. You can find the stream as well on our Facebook, WIBW News. The text line is down. We do not have the text line up and functional for now. It is a technical issue that, frankly, is above any of our pay grades.
Yeah.
So as soon as we are able to get that fixed, we will let you know, and you can text us to your heart's content.
In the meantime, you can text Spencer Dupuis. I don't know your phone number offhand, Spence. I was gonna give the area code. Then I realized I don't even remember your area code. So
I know 7 of the 10 digits of your phone number. I don't remember the middle 3. I've had to fill it out for a bunch of stuff. I don't remember the middle 3. I know the first 3. I know the last 4. And I know Dan's area code. I don't know any of the rest of your phone number.
I know your area code, though. I don't even know yours.
One of the numbers you used in the last 4 is in the middle 3.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I know yours. Okay. I remember now. I've had
to be obscure.
Spencer's gone to a handful of KU games recently, and I've had to send him our parking pass, and you do it via text, via mobile. And so I will have to have the like transfer window open in Safari. I have to have the contacts open in another one, and I have to keep looking back and cross-checking. So I've stared at his phone number a lot recently.
Sure.
So I at least have that one somewhat fresh.
That makes sense, and it makes me feel less bad that you know more of his than you do mine.
No,
even though we've worked together for a substantially longer period of time.
Yeah, I've had your phone number
Yes.
for a long time.
No.
I've only had to send you a parking pass, I think, once or twice.
Yeah,
though.
I think only once. Yeah. No, I don't. Your area code, what? Start with a 3?
Mine?
Yeah.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Not close.
There's a Chicagoland area code that starts with a 3, though, isn't there?
312. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. 312-773-847-708. Yeah, there's a bunch.
You're a 708, right?
Yeah, I'm a 708.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Suburbs.
Yeah.
Western suburbs. Yeah.
Yeah. Nope. I've got the suburban Denver area code of 720. I had a 303 on the house number as a kid, but no, I have the dreaded code that marks me as an outsider, not truly of the city, but in fact of the suburbs.
That is really, really real. I know that 100%. Again, we'll get to some college basketball, some Major League Baseball a little bit later on today, but I wanted to start off with some big Chiefs news that came out earlier today. This is news, but really none of us should be surprised by this at all. Tom Pelissero of NFL Network, and now some other folks as well, have reported that talks are going to begin shortly between Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs to get Big Red a new contract. He is not going anywhere. If you believe, and I don't mean to insult your intelligence, I'm not speaking to you two directly, but if you believed that Mike Florio report that Andy Reid was not only going to retire, but then be replaced by Bill Belichick, you're not very bright. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Like, I need you to go watch some trivia shows, go to the library, like open up the World Book, learn a little bit, because that was never going to happen. Getting this extension done at some point almost was certainly going to end up happening. And according to Tom Pelissero, it will make him the highest paid coach in the NFL. Any complaints about that? Any single complaint at all?
No.
I mean,
how long can they make the contract? How long does Andy want to coach?
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. How long is he willing to coach for?
Yeah, that's all. And remember,
but also, is he really going anywhere?
No, he's not going anywhere. Like this can get done anytime. He is not going to leave. He is going to finish his career with the Kansas City Chiefs. And coach salaries don't count against the cap. You can give him whatever you want. They could go say right now, Andy, we're going to pay you $1 billion. It does nothing to affect what the team can do this offseason. Like it's pretty nice in that way. He is not going absolutely anywhere. That is not a surprise. We knew this was going to happen. Great. Here's the question that I take from this, though. And even if the Chiefs don't win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years, which at this point almost seems unlikely, Andy Reid's still one of the greatest coaches in NFL history, probably the best coach in Chiefs history. Now it's him or Hank Stram, and you're keeping him anyway. You don't want him to go anywhere. So then that brings the question to me, how sustainable is this run long term? Because now you know Patrick Mahomes is not going anywhere. You know Andy Reid is not going anywhere. Your general manager, Brett Veach, he is not going anywhere. I don't view Veach as like a Theo Epstein guy, to use a baseball comparison. Like when he was in Boston, he was still a little new. We maybe didn't know what his future would be. But like when he got to Chicago with the Cubs, at least I, being a fan of that team, knew like this isn't forever. Like he's got one goal. Maybe he lingers around, tries to get a second, but it's not going to be a long-term thing with Theo in Chicago. Brett Veach, to me, and NFL GMs in general, they're not guys who just kind of like jump from job to job. Like,
right.
There's only 32 of them.
Yeah, he's not going to do this for like 5 more years and then, I don't know, go get a job in the private sector. Like, that's not,
Or be like, I want to rebuild the Jags. Like, no, you just keep winning.
Ready for a new challenge. No, man. And the other thing, too, is like, he isn't, I don't want to not give him the credit he deserves, but it's not like he is the sole architect.
Yes.
And that is not to say that he does not deserve a tremendous amount of credit for the work he has done in the Chiefs front office, the work he has done drafting and all of those things. But it is very much a shared responsibility to build the roster. Now,
yes.
Very long pause to stay. Who am I? Jim Rome? Jesus.
Clones.
Looking for the right word. Rack me.
It's Monday.
It is. It's a shared responsibility for roster building, and Andy Reid has a hand in it. And Brett Veach is not it's a lot closer to the symbiotic relationships that general managers have had with head coaches than it is like what you had with Tom Telesco running the show in Los Angeles / San Diego for all those years, where he was the general manager.
Yeah.
Ted Thompson in Green Bay for all those years. Like, you do have a lot of autonomous general managers out there. This is what I was trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of general managers who have pretty full autonomy in terms of buying the groceries for their coach to assemble the meal. That is not the case in Kansas City. Andy Reid doesn't have officially in his title anything regarding personnel decisions, but we all know he gets to help buy the groceries.
Yes.
So there is a teamwork element of this front office and coaching staff that helps to ensure that it stays together, because both sides understand this is a mutually beneficial relationship. And we need to look no further than our ring fingers and our trophy case to know that that's true.
Yeah, no, 100% true. So you've got those three. The most important things you can have outside of a good owner. You've got a good general manager, you've got a good head coach, you've got a good quarterback, and all of those guys together have factored into, while Travis Kelce, you hope is going to play for at least a couple more years at a high level, you've drafted cornerstone guys. You've got he might not be elite right now, he's not Myles Garrett, but a really good number one pass rushing option on the edge in George Karlaftis. You have drafted a number one corner in Trent McDuffie. Whatever ends up happening to L'Jarius Sneed, you drafted that guy at corner. You have been killing it in the draft year after year. You've got all of the pieces to build a champion, and that is what they have done year after year after year after year for the last 5 years. 3 championships, including each of the last 2. A third one in a row has never been done in the Super Bowl era. The Patriots dynasty, which we've talked about so many times, lasted for 20 years, but even they had 10 years in between championships at one point. That was essentially 2 different dynasties bridged by just a lot of other really good football in the middle of it.
And the third year that when they made a run at a third straight Super Bowl, it's not like they got back to the Super Bowl. They lost in the divisional round to the Jake Plummer Broncos on the road. So, that dream died pretty hard for the last team to try to do it. Again, that was 20 years ago.
Yeah. So you're in a position now where you can make history. The closest allegory I can come up with in the Super Bowl era for what the Chiefs are trying to do is the Steelers of the 1970s when they won back-to-back twice in the span of 5 or 6 years. 6 years it was. That's the closest allegory we have in the Super Bowl era. And when you consider that, along with the fact that it is harder to win in the NFL now than it ever has been before. And that's progressive with time because the players get better, the coaches get better, the money changes things, free agency changes things, the way the game is played has changed things. It is harder now to win than it was, and more teams as well. Harder now to win than it was in the 1970s, which was harder than the pre-Super Bowl era, which is harder than the days before they even had a postseason, etc. It gets harder with time. So how sustainable do you feel like this actually is? Because the basics of it, the cornerstones, the building blocks, they all seem like they are in place. And why couldn't you keep winning? It's just with the point of historical perspective in focus right now, while we have time to sort of reflect and look ahead, it's hard to predict something that has never happened, especially with this level of competition, is suddenly going to happen. That is what we are now, that is the territory we are now in, what we are now talking about with this Chiefs team and with this Chiefs franchise.
It's interesting to look at the history of the teams that have tried to do this, right? Because when you're winning championships, you're playing a lot of extra football. You're going through essentially another month of a season where if you're not playing into that year, your body doesn't take that beating. You're not in practice. You're not playing that extra 2, 3, or in the Chiefs case this year, 4 games. I mean, if you think about the number of playoff games the Chiefs have played now in the last 5, 6, just since Mahomes has been a starter, right? That's the equivalent of a full season. They played a full extra season of football in the last 6 seasons. And they have in the last 3 seasons, let's just do the last 3, 7, 8, 9 playoff games, half a season, half an extra season of football in the last 3 years. That's more than they were playing, like playoff wise. You go back to the days before the 17 game schedule and the additional playoff teams and it's a little maybe less demanding in that way,
Mhm.
but that's a lot of football. That's a lot of football that the Chiefs have played. And you do wonder to what extent that begins to take a toll on a team that is trying to go for 3 straight. Because again, we don't really have much of a modern analog for this. There have been teams who've been to back-to-back Super Bowls.
Mhm.
There have been teams who've gone to 3 straight, like 3 or 4 straight, but winning. And it's hard. Like
Mhm.
the Cowboys, 92, 93, they won it all. 94, they lost to a better 49ers. Like that was the year the 49ers got the better of them in the NFC Championship game. Broncos in 97 and 98, that's a different scenario because their quarterback retired, but their best player, the MVP of that team, tore up his knee 4 games into the 99 season, Terrell Davis. And that was the end of the Broncos run. The 49ers, maybe even better in 1990 than they were in 88 and 89, or at least every bit as good. And then they just couldn't find the end zone in a NFC Championship game where their quarterback got hurt. And they end up losing to the Giants that year. So there's so many things that can happen, so many different ways that it can go wrong. That's why it's so remarkable to even have done what the Chiefs have already done, and why it's hard to predict that they can go back and do it again, because there are so many things that can stand up that are either predictable and explainable, even as without the benefit of hindsight, but also the things that can crop up during the run that can derail a team. No matter how well coached, no matter how great the players are, you just never know what can happen. So it's a long-winded way of saying that it's hard to say with certainty, yes, this Chiefs team is going to be the team that breaks this mold. They do something that's never been done before. But boy, they're built to do it. Like they're in position where, like, again, that Bronco team that won 2 straight, end of an era because Elway retired. The Cowboy team that won 2 straight, they always had a big bad at the end waiting for them in the 49ers. And then when the year the 49ers had Dion, basically, they couldn't get past the 49ers. The Patriots, they kind of had to evolve to reach their next phase as a team. The Chiefs are there. Like, they are a championship version of themselves going into next season. The biggest thing that stands in their way, I don't necessarily think it's just the weight of history. I think it's the AFC is really good, and it's going to be hard to get through the playoffs again, just like it was this last year.
And when you have to go through Allen and Burrow and maybe Stroud and all sort, maybe Lawrence at some point, all these different, got Herbert in your own division. Like, it's challenging to get through. It's just hard for me to say, like, something that has never happened, a dynasty that we have never seen before is going to happen. But I think Dan expressed it well, Spencer. Like, they're built for it, which is kind of the incredible thing. Like, Patrick Mahomes is not at the end of his career. Like, even, we make the Jordan comparison a lot, the Michael Jordan thing. MJ was in the back half of his career when the dynasty happened. Like, the 6 championships in 8 years, that was the back half of MJ's career. This is the front half of Patrick Mahomes' career. That's the shocking thing. Like, it's not even like the Patriots at the back half or the back end of their dynasty when they also won 3 and 5 years. They won in alternating years, but there was always this sort of specter, and because it came up every single season, right? That, well, the dynasty is done because Belichick is even more mad than usual, or something is wrong with Brady. He's lost some zip on his fat. Like, there was always something that made you think this is going to eventually fall off. Father Time is going to win. Patrick Mahomes is 28. Like, we're nowhere close to any of that.
And I think, too, when he signed his extension, he signed it with the team in mind, and he talks about willing to be flexible on his already signed deal to be able to continue the run that they've had to make it into a dynasty. And not that you don't see that a lot, but it just seems like a lot of teams have so much money into 2 players, and those 2 players, one's like, either I'm getting paid or I'm leaving. Like, we're probably gonna see in Buffalo with, top wide receiver with Josh Allen there, and a top wide receiver wanted to leave because they haven't won, but they just have, the amount in the contracts, not only with the salary cap going up in record numbers every year, it feels like, but they have the flexibility because Patrick Mahomes says he wants to continue winning championships, Super Bowls, and says, I'm willing to renegotiate my deal every couple of years.
And again,
if that is how they need to go.
And again, it just puts all that much more emphasis on how incredible it is to have the GM, the coach, and the quarterback all at the same time with an owner who is willing to stay out of the way for football. Like, say whatever you want about Clark Hunt and his business dealings or his personal life or whatever. Like, he stays out of it. That is Brett's job. That is Andy's job. I will just speak. I'll be essentially our team spokesman, and that's it.
I'll sign the checks, and you won't hear from me other than one press conference a year.
I want my apartment in the studio, in the stadium, and I'll be good there.
Yeah, like that's incredible. To have all of that is honestly incredible, because as we have seen historically, you can't hit on every single one of those things all at the same time. Coming up on the other side of this first commercial break today, the NFL Scouting Combine begins today. Anything we're interested in, we'll touch on. Plus, we'll talk a little Major League Baseball later on this hour right here on 580 Sports Talk. We're just getting started on this Monday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan, Dan, Spencer here with you. On until 5 today. We're off early for K-State Hoops. Cats versus Mountaineers. We'll talk about that game a little bit later on in the show today. The NFL Combine starts today. Do you ever watch the Combine on TV, Spencer? I know Dan's answer. I don't need to ask.
When I used to be bored, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a thing of boredom.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I'm not like, hey, I gotta go watch TV because the Combine's on. Like, if it's on and I'm not doing anything.
I'm DVRing the Underwear Olympics.
The O linemen are running the 40.
I think one day when I was a kid, I was like sick, so I missed school. So I had like
watched the Combine all day.
Yeah, I just watched the Combine all day.
Nothing is more fun to watch than whatever it is you watch on TV when you're taking a sick day.
Exactly.
The Price is Right.
for a generation, for several generations.
It is like every American child had the same experience. It really is amazing.
We talk about like we're losing elements of the monoculture,
Yeah.
things that everybody has experienced. That is a monocultural experience.
I just
The
remember
Price is Right being on in the morning when you skip school, or being the last thing you see before CBS starts their coverage of March Madness.
I remember when I was a kid, and I guess this was late middle school into high school. If I was ever sick, I guess it was late middle school. Like my parents would trust me to, stay home by myself. Maybe not. So I don't know if that's
Sure.
like if that's culturally acceptable. It is probably now, but then I don't. It was like somebody's got to stay. Well, my mom would be like, "You're sick. Stay in bed." Nah, she left 10 minutes later. I was walking downstairs, turning on the TV.
Sugary cereal, having snacks all day, watching TV. No, this is the way I need to rest. Anyway, so the combine starts today. We'll have different, workouts and whatnot every single day throughout the week. The actual drills begin Thursday, running through next Monday. So the first few days of the week, it's all the processing tests and the interviews and various other media responsibilities, things like that. We'll talk a little bit about it with Matt Verderame coming up later on in the show.
I resent the idea that you didn't need to ask me that question. Maybe I've evolved. Maybe my perspective on the televised scouting combine has changed over time. You don't know because you didn't ask.
Dan, has your opinion on the combine on TV changed at all?
Absolutely not. If you watch it, get help.
Yeah, I watched a little bit last year.
I deserve to be asked is all I'm saying.
I watched last
fair
year
enough.
because I had somebody I know, somebody that I covered in it.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I had an interest to watch it last year.
Like, I will seek out when Dominic Pooney and Austin Booker are done with their respective drills. I will seek out the video of, Dom Pooney putting up pass sets. Like, I want to see that. I want to see Austin Booker, who, by the way,
Yeah, you talk about some helium.
So I was listening this morning to the Athletic Football Show. They did their Prospects to Pros podcast every week. Dane Brugler, who we've had on the show, the Athletics draft guy, and Nate Tice, they just talk prospects. And today, they just did an hour and 15 minutes of just who are you excited to see at the combine? And they went position by position. I think they spent as much time on Austin Booker as they did any other prospect on the whole show, which was like 4 minutes, which doesn't seem like a lot. But when you consider Caleb Williams and Drake May got the same amount of time and no one else did, it's like, oh, shoot. And Brugler said at first I thought, yeah, he's probably a day 3 guy. And then I thought, well, probably like early, like round 4. And then just every single time he rewatches this film, he says, this might be an early day 2 guy. Like, loves him. And everybody who covers the draft loves him. So guys like that, yeah, I'm going to seek out the video of them doing stuff.
The fun thing with Booker, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No, please.
The thing with Booker that's so interesting is it's not frequent that we don't have a lot of tape on guys going into the draft anymore, because it used to be sometimes you just didn't see a guy on TV or whatever, or they were at a 1-year starter and maybe you wouldn't get a lot of tape on guys. Now you got everybody's tape. You got all the tape you could want on any prospect. Booker's a little bit of an exception because he really didn't play much at Minnesota. And really only got his first taste of playing time this past year at Kansas, and he produced like crazy. He put up big numbers. So he is an actual curiosity in an era where you just don't have like combine curiosities like him anymore. They're not like guys that slip through the cracks and pop up in this process as, oh, wait, you know nothing about this guy, but he put up these incredible measurables. And like the Dontari Poes of the world. Like Dontari Poe was a guy nobody was talking about, and then he went in the top 10 of the draft. Nobody saw him play at Memphis, but he had a great combine.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's 100% true.
We don't have a lot of those guys anymore. So it's kind of neat that Austin Booker is genuinely that kind of a curiosity. And it's cool to see the draftniks get excited about a guy that, because we did watch, you and I, more Kansas football than most people. We can say, hey, man, we were early adopters here. We knew this guy was good.
We saw him in that game against Illinois and going, oh, my God. Like, whoa, this dude is pretty good. You usually hear on the draft, the term 1-year wonder is usually a negative. Yeah. Like, you think of 1-year wonders and you think of Mitchell Trubisky, who couldn't beat out a guy who was a backup in the 2020 XFL. Like, those are 1-year wonders who you're worried about. Austin Booker's a one-year wonder, and you go, he was that good in 1 year? Like, that ain't a fluke, dude. He was beating other top 60 picks in the draft regularly all year. So that's super exciting. So outside of specifically him, I'm interested in Pooney too, because he's a KU guy. I'm fascinated by what folks at the Combine think of Cooper Beebe. Because if you say solely on nothing but college tape, if you're going to say, I'm going to build my draft board on nothing but what I saw on coaches' film from college, Cooper Beebe is not a first-round pick. Cooper Beebe is a top 20 pick. There is no question about it. But that's not how NFL teams do it, right? At least not all NFL teams. When you're getting to like round 6, 7, probably. You say, hey, this dude is a star. Let's give it a shot. For Cooper, though, there are going to be questions about what kind of athletic testing going to the next level. And I did not know that. I knew his arms were shorter than a lot of top prospects. Apparently, he's got like T-Rex arms relative to a lot of guards. I heard that on this podcast this morning. I'm fascinated by what the NFL thinks of him. Because, again, we've seen a lot of Cooper Beebe. We've talked to Cooper. We know how he thinks. We know how he ticks. We know what kind of player he is. And, again, if you just based it on tape, that is the best interior offensive lineman in the entire draft. And I'm not saying that just because he's a local guy. Like, that is a fact. But that's not all everybody looks into. So I'm really fascinated how scouts and media people judge him relative to bigger guys. Because I think he is a good enough player. He could be a first-round pick. I think he probably will go on day 2. There's some people who say they wouldn't take him till round 4 because of those things that I've seen. What's his name from PFF? Trevor Sikkema. He's PFF's draft guy. He said, I've got a round 4 grade on him. I just don't think he's a good enough athlete to play at the next level regularly, which I think is insane.
Yes, that's wild to me. I don't see that at all.
It's crazy to me, truly crazy. But that's why this week is so insane, because you hear these takes that you never would have thought of otherwise. Sometimes they end up being lunacy, and sometimes they end up, sometimes you end up with Trey Lance going 3rd overall in the draft.
Yeah.
So other than that, so the local guys for me specifically are what are fascinating. Any other storyline, individual, maybe a full position group that you've got a keen eye on, or if you're not going to watch it, or at least interested to hear what the takeaways are?
Well, I don't know how much of the wide receivers we're going to get a look at. It sounds like Marvin Harrison Jr. is not going to go to the Combine at all, but a chance for those guys to maybe separate a little bit, the ones who go to the Combine. And I think the Chiefs are going to take a running back day 3.
Ooh.
So looking at that prospect, I'll tell you this. Look for the fast ones, because the last 2 years, the Chiefs have come away from the draft process, and we talked about this.
Yep.
They've come away from the draft process with the running back who registers the highest speed score, which is basically how fast you are factored in with your size. And Isaiah Pacheco had the best speed score of any running back in the draft 2 years ago, and the Chiefs came away with him in the 7th round. And last year, it was an undrafted guy who had the best speed score of any of the running backs in the class, and that was Deneric Prince out of Tulsa, and he ended up on the Chiefs practice squad all year and had a real shot to make the team at one point in camp. So I think being on the lookout for those guys, like if you want to watch some 40 times, watch the running backs run some 40s, and the fastest one who's a little big, that guy might be a Chief. Just, keep an eye on that.
Spencer?
I think what we have of the top few quarterbacks, I read something that people aren't good, like Caleb Williams isn't going to throw.
Yeah, he ain't throwing. I know McCarthy. I think McCarthy, Nix, and Penix are all going to.
I am interested maybe in that, because I still don't know what the Commanders are going to do. They're not going to trade up. I know that. They're not going to trade to get number 1. Do you trade back and try to get a guy at like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there? Or do you just go at 2 and get maybe, when it comes to best available, maybe, pull a guy like May or Daniels because I'm looking at a lot of things, and it seems like top 10 draft prospects, like if you're looking at best available, like receivers after Caleb Williams, it's a few receivers. So do you trade back a few picks for some team that might want Marvin Harrison? Or I just don't know. I'm still way out on what the Commanders will do, because they have so many options to do with a new head coach, new coordinator, new everything, new front office. Like, I just don't know what they're going to do this year. Are they going to go with Sam? Apparently, Sam Howell could be traded. There was some rumors over the weekend that he could get
hey man,
a third-round pick. Like,
if you can get a sixer, like I would take it. And by I don't mean a 6th-round pick. I mean like a 6-pack of MGD or something. Like that's what I would take for Sam Howell right now. Not his fault, but his stock was completely cooked this year. The quarterback situation is fascinating. I don't see Jaden Daniels as the top 3 pick. I don't. Apparently, he is going to be. That's what everyone seems to believe at this point.
Like overall?
Yeah, there are a lot of mock drafts out there from surprisingly reputable sources that have quarterback going 1 through 3, which I would be shocked about. But again, I'm not a scout. I get stuff like this wrong all the time. We all do. I think I won our mock draft contest last year with 6 picks. So it is difficult to get these right. I'm fascinated by the quarterbacks too, but kind of a bummer we won't get to see them throw it all. Yeah. We'll move on to Major League Baseball after this break. The Royals probably aren't going to add anyone else, but what if they did? That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk. We had some Major League Baseball free agent news this weekend, benefiting my favorite team, the Cubs. Cody Bellinger back in Chicago.
3 years, $80 million, couple of opt-outs.
Yeah, so
that was like an after midnight free agent edition, right?
The one time I go to bed before 2 o'clock, the Cubs break news at 1 o'clock. God. I tell you what, I was so tired this weekend. Believe it or not, moving a lot of furniture and just moving in general, exhausting.
Imagine,
you both have experienced this in the last 2 years.
Imagine doing that when the temperatures
3
are
years.
sub-zero.
Yeah, Abby and I were remarking yesterday. We got so lucky that we had perfect weather. We U-hauled all of our furniture yesterday, and we could not have been luckier. And I told her, like, yeah, Spencer had to move when it was freezing and snowing. That was not so fun for him. I need to do it all the way across the country. We just moved 30 minutes west.
You almost got stuck an hour into my travels.
Moving once, huh? Yeah, boy, that must be tough, guys.
Sorry, Dan. Cody Bellinger, though, he is off the market. He signed with the Cubs. Essentially a 1-year deal, 2 option years effectively, but he is back in Chicago, so that is one big free agent off the market. There are still a lot of good players who are out there available. Starting pitching-wise, Blake Snell, who, let's remember, won the NL Cy Young last year. And he's not, like, 42. He's a hard pitcher to watch, but he's good at it. He's very good at what he does. Jordan Montgomery is still available, who's a good starting pitcher.
He helped the Rangers win a championship.
Yeah. You've got plenty of decent bullpen arms that are still out there. In terms of actual position players, bats who are still... Look, the Cubs just signed Cody Bellinger. Could the Cubs sign Matt Chapman? Because he's never going to hit for average. That's not the kind of hitter he is. But he can mash. He can hit home runs. And in a hitter's ballpark, you probably do pretty well.
Oh, yeah. 4 Gold Gloves at third base, too, including last year's.
Decent.
Yeah.
Sign him. Someone. Bring that guy in. I don't know how well his bat would play at the K, and the Royals have their third baseman, Michael Garcia. But
I'd rather have Chapman. I'd move Garcia to second base and bring in a third baseman with a little bit of thump.
Yes. Always, the Royals are a team that is not in position where it should say, we can't fit someone. No. Here's where you cannot fit someone if you are the Royals right now. Here's the one spot, shortstop.
Yep.
You cannot fit in a shortstop because you've got the dude. You've got the guy there. Other guys who are available right now. Like, what's your feeling on JD Martinez?
You plug him in the middle of your order, he's going to hit 30 and probably drive in about 90.
Could the Royals use that right now?
Yeah. I mean,
spring training has started. Do you have to pay that guy? I mean, you have to pay him a lot.
Yeah, 1 year, 15, 16 million, probably get it done for JD Martinez. And honestly, like, I'd rather give him at bats than Hunter Renfroe. He's a better hitter than Renfroe.
I would agree with that.
Renfroe's a better defense. Like, you can't play JD Martinez in the outfield anymore. Like, he is.
No, you can.
That's the problem. Like, the Royals already have a bunch, kind of a crush of guys that they need to give DH at bats to. And that's the sticky part for Martinez is he cannot play the field. So like, he's looking for a team that has an obvious vacancy at DH. Like, you do not have a true designated hitter. The Royals probably have a plan for their DH at bats that involves Salvi and Velasquez and Melendez. That, okay, like if they said, yeah, we can't make it work with JD Martinez, I would say, okay, I understand you have a plan that doesn't work for JD Martinez. Okay, I will accept that. I will accept that response from the Royals. But I would not accept, no, we have Michael Garcia. We can't do a Gold Glove 20, 25, 30 in his best years, home run hitting third baseman on the left side, even for just a year to make us better.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I guess, because he got the qualifying offer? Like, is that what's scaring you? It feels like we are repeating 2019 all over again, or 18, 19, 20, not really, because that was the COVID year, but where teams just refuse to sign guys. Just, no, we don't want to sign them.
They wait until the penalty from the qualifying offer is gone, and then all of a sudden you'll see these guys sign. But yeah, that took like a month.
Yeah.
A month out of the season.
Which, the irony of that Major League Baseball continues to kill the minors and try to shrink minor league baseball, but then teams don't want to pay the penalty to bring in draft picks.
Yeah.
And it's a crock is what it is. But like, is that what's scaring teams off? Is that why teams don't want to make these moves? Like, if I was a team that was trying to fight for a playoff spot, again, the Royals, go add another bat. It doesn't have to just be the Royals. I gave you my favorite team, the Cubs. Go ahead, Matt Chapman. Why not? You still, third base is, maybe it could be a good player. Maybe it's going to be a disaster like it's been since, say, for like 3 years of Chris Bryant. Like, what sign these guys. Why are you not signing Jordan Montgomery? What good reason is it for most teams in Major League Baseball right now to not sign a 31-year-old left-handed starting pitcher who is a top half of your rotation guy?
There's no good reason.
None! Not one whatsoever!
Yeah, he'd make the Royals better. Matt,
yeah, there's another thing, too. You want to talk, like, position player-wise, where can you not fit in a guy for the Royals? It's one spot. Here's the great thing about having a 5-man starting rotation. Generally speaking, you always have someone who's replaceable. No one's got 5 aces. The Royals, your top 4. Do you feel good with Reagans, Singer, Lugo, Waka in some orders? That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Your 5th starter is either Daniel Lynch, who is a complete question mark for the 4th year in a row, or it's Jordan Lyles.
Who is Jordan Lyles?
Who stinks. You don't think that right now 1 year of Jordan Montgomery wouldn't do you wonders? Jordan Montgomery, rockets up to being one of your top 3 starters.
Yes.
And look, you still might not have a great order. I think it's a better batting order than it was a year ago. If for no other reason, Witt has another year of experience and Vinny P is back. But then you have second best rotation in the division, if not closer to the best.
Yeah.
Maybe
absolutely.
not the highest ceiling, but in terms of actual production, you're right there with the very best of the best. Why wouldn't you go do something like that? Why wouldn't any team go do something like that? You are going to improve your rotation. Part of this is just me projecting my frustration with the Cubs front office right now, but it's also just a true reflection of Major League Baseball. These are good players.
Yeah, you can go make your team a lot better right now. Like the Mets, what's their excuse? Why haven't they, we know they got the money. The Red Sox, you got the money. Like, everybody's got the money, but there are teams who really got the money, and they're sitting on it right now instead of going and signing a Cy Young winner or a Gold Glove third baseman or a 30-homer middle-of-the-order bat like J.D. Martinez. And I don't know. I don't know how those teams can do that and then say, hey, we're doing our best to put the most competitive team we can on the field. Well, no, you're not.
Honestly, like even a guy like Adam Duvall, who had a good bounce back year last year with Boston, and for his career, his OPS plus is 99. It's actually just a tick below league average, but he can hit dingers.
Yeah.
He can hit for power.
And he's a good defender.
He's a good defender. Hell, he has a 100 RBI season in his career. That was his last year in Atlanta, where he split time between Atlanta and Miami. He had 113 RBIs that season and won a Gold Glove. Like, there are dudes out there who can help you. Again, not every team has 9 untouchables in your batting order. Someone can fit in Adam Duvall. Someone could fit in JD Martinez, someone like this. It's bizarre to me. It is truly, truly bizarre to me. And then you've got teams like Cleveland that, can you give me a good reason why Cleveland isn't trying?
No.
At least some teams can do the whole, we're a small market thing, which for the most part is kind of a lie. But what is the good reason why Cleveland should have a payroll that right now is $22 million less than the Royals?
So I'd tell you, they look a lot more threatening if they put Adam Duvall in the middle of their order than in center field than Miles Straw. I know that right now.
These are such simple things. Your favorite team, I know they're doing what they normally do, but they could go add someone and make a more watchable product.
Yeah,
I don't mean to make you mad because we're short on time here, but you don't think the Rockies could go do something? Anything?
Yeah, we're stuck. We can't put anybody anywhere because we're stuck giving 1,000 at bats to the corpse of Chris Bryant and Charlie Blackmon.
At least you're not stuck paying Steven Strasburg.
I'd rather pay him.
Who hasn't even shown up to spring training.
I'd rather pay him than Chris Bryant.
To do nothing?
I'd rather be paying him to do nothing than Chris Bryant to do nothing.
Chris Bryant's good looking, though.
He's very handsome.
Which is probably more important to
very
one
nice.
half of. Yeah, great guy.
Steven Strasburg isn't a very media-friendly guy, so.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it's so. Again, we've had this discussion every offseason, and I'm glad it took until spring training actually started this year to have this discussion. That's also because the Chiefs were good this year and won the Super Bowl. But as just someone who loves baseball, I would like for more good teams and more good players because then the product is better.
It'd be nice if more teams tried to be good, tried their best to be as good as they could.
So frustrating. Coming up after the news, we'll lead off the 3 o'clock hour with some college hoops on 580 Sports Talk. now, 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Just getting started. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, and Spencer Dupuis all here with you on this Monday afternoon. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. We're off at 5 o'clock. K-State hoops tonight, taking on West Virginia. We'll talk about that game coming up in a little bit. Big one for K-State. Got to keep winning. Winnable game Saturday. Took care of business. We'll recap that in a minute as well. Winnable game tonight at home. Have to win that one. And another winnable game, I think, on the road coming up next weekend against Cincinnati.
Yeah, they got blown out.
Yeah, man.
On Saturday. They look like they've hit a bit of a wall.
Yeah, and not surprised that it came for a Big 12 newcomer, but yeah, they are appear to be cooked for this year. So big opportunities here for K-State to get a couple of important wins. We'll see if they can tonight against West Virginia. Also this hour, we'll do the good, the bad, and the ugly from the weekend, and we'll talk to Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated on all things NFL. You're welcome to be a part of the show in the YouTube comment section. Go to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk. That is the best way to find our show each and every day. Our text line is down. We apologize. It is not something we can control. It is not something that we have any power to fix at the moment. Our finest people, though, are working on it. We will hopefully have that up and ready to go for you as soon as possible.
Working on getting a functioning fax machine, also Telegram. We're working on as well. We will have the capacity for you to send us telegrams, Morse code.
I'm being told you can send us postcards.
Yeah, snail mail.
Yeah, so if we say something and you want to react to it, yes, send us mail. 1210 Southwest Executive Drive, Topeka, Kansas, 666. Are we 04 up here?
66615.
Oh, 15. Okay. So 66615. Man, it'd be really funny if we got like an actual postcard
It would be
at
very
the end
funny.
of the week.
Yeah.
So yeah, please feel free to send it. We check the mail every day. Feel free to send us snail mail. If you've got a comment, you just have to get in, but don't necessarily want read until Thursday or Friday. We would be more than happy to oblige you in that regard. Let's get to the basketball from this weekend. We'll start with KU. We'll get to K-State, both looking back and looking ahead in a few minutes. Really fun game for KU against Texas. It is always fun to beat Texas. I think absolutely everyone everywhere feels that exact same way. Man, they hammered the Longhorns. The Longhorns stink. Texas is not good. That is not a good program right now, which is very funny to me. And again, we were right. Rodney Terry, not good at the job. Just not.
No, they look poorly coached. That's why you don't hire the substitute teacher. I was right. I'm going to take my victory lap on that one. I was right.
You should, yeah.
They should on a coaching search, and now they might miss the NCAA tournament. It is like you look at that roster man for man, and then you look at K-State's roster man for man, and I know it's not a balanced schedule. The unbalanced schedule in the Big 12 skews this, but there's no way Texas should be 6-8 in this league, the same record that K-State has, and not amongst the contenders. Again, you look at this roster, player for player. They have, if I may, dudes at Texas. They should not be 6-8 in the conference.
Agreed.
And they should not be getting run off the floor by a KU team missing their best guard in Kevin McCullough. They should not, under any circumstances, be getting stunted on by Nick Timberlake.
Dog, he was walking on the moon on that dunk.
I've never seen an arena break out in mayhem for a player that is not a big caliber player. No offense to Nick Timberlake, but I think everybody would admit that. When he dunked, I will tell you that it was already loud in there.
Yeah.
It went to a whole nother level.
He said just a few minutes ago during his media session today, it was so loud that the team couldn't hear themselves think after that dunk. I mean, I said it after it happened. That was both the coolest and funniest KU highlight of the entire season. That's a better highlight than his dunk earlier in the year. He just yammed on them. Like they had done something to him personally.
I didn't know his elevator had that floor.
No.
To get to that. No. That was genuinely astonishing. I think I cracked up. I think I laughed out loud on the couch.
I shrieked listening on the radio. I couldn't believe that that's what happened. But like, you just look at just take a look at the box score, and it tells you more than enough about that game. KU shot 61.5% from the floor. And that's because Texas just like is really crappy. Like they're just not good, man.
No.
Like they cooked them. KU took 8 threes. 8 threes.
They never tried to do anything to KU to force them to be uncomfortable. Like coaches will play every card in their deck, right? Like you've even seen Bill Self say, hey, let's go to a zone for 2 or 3 possessions just to make this team think about what they're doing. And maybe we throw them off kilter. Maybe we get them out of their rhythm a little bit, force a miss. If Texas tried anything different defensively, I didn't see it. They just said, oh, well, surely this will be the possession where Dylan DeSue grows 5 inches so he can actually guard Hunter Dickinson. And it was not. It was never that possession.
Nope.
That never happened.
Never happened.
Because it isn't possible.
It's not possible. And Rodney Terry may learn that at some point. Maybe. Who knows? That's a bad
at his next job that he takes in 3 years when they're done with him in Texas after they go 6-12 in the SEC next year.
KU, good to get that win. Good to win without McCullough, and we'll get up to McCullough in a half a second here. Remaining schedule for KU: BYU tomorrow night, at Baylor. That's an ABC game. Home for K-State, and then at top-ranked Houston. I'm just going to say probably 2-2 there. I think Baylor is beatable.
Yes.
That arena is going to be, what is the new building called?
Oh, it's not the Farrell side. Something Foster Pavilion.
Yeah, something like that. I keep calling it the Farrell Center and then having to correct myself. That is
Foster Pavilion.
Unlikely but doable, I would say. You're not beating Houston at the Fertitta Center. Let's just be realistic. KU also, I feel like, is often bad in the final road game of the regular season. I feel like that's just something KU always struggles with.
Wasn't long ago they tricked off a outright Big 12 title and lost to TCU. And this was before Jamie Dixon got it humming.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's very true. So you're not winning on March 9th. It just is what it is. I think KU will win the 2 home games and could win the Baylor game. That is a doable game.
Well, Houston just went to Baylor and won. The trick with Baylor is you have to keep them going nuts from behind the arc. You have to defend the 3-point line. And
you're having KU fans war flashbacks right now.
Yeah, like KU defending the 3-point line on the road this year, that has not been a pleasant experience.
Not been great.
No, not been particularly good at that.
Especially, and coming off of a good game, hate to go right to the negative, but you will probably be starting Nick Timberlake in that game.
Yeah.
We have seen that tape of 3-point line defense.
Yeah.
We've seen enough of that this year. So no, that's not quite having Kevin McCullough out there.
I will tell you what, I was impressed with what he was able to do.
Heck of a game.
His time on the court for a guy that doesn't play, and when he played the last time, he didn't
go so well.
Didn't distinguish himself. Yeah.
No, I give him tons of credit. He played really well. KU gets anything out of its bench, it is really hard to beat. If it gets, and I know Timberlake had to start, but talking about filling in for Kevin McCullough, he was great. And KU ran Texas off the floor. I thought Elmarco Jackson did not take a shot.
No, but he had the best plus minus of any player on the court.
Did 4 assists, including maybe KU's best pass of the whole year.
Yeah, the heat-seeking behind-the-back pass in traffic to Hunter Dickinson.
Jamari McDowell was good. He was your energy guy. He played 15 whole minutes. Parker Brown was playable. That's all you need. You need him to be playable, and that's it. 7 minutes. 7 minutes, made 1 shot, had 1 turnover, a pair of blocks. Awesome. That's all you need out of him. You need him to not be a sieve defensively and to not throw the ball away on offense for a few minutes to get Hunter a break. That's it. As long as you get that, you are golden. And that's all KU needs from this bench. It is all they've needed all year, just haven't gotten that consistently. You're going to need more of that, though, going forward, because Bill Self has straight up said, and again, he just spoke in Lawrence within the last half hour, might not have Kevin McCullough the rest of the way.
Yeah, he said it on Saturday, and that was my big takeaway was he said it's basically what I talked about today on my sports was it's not when, it's if he's even able to play, and he seemed very concerned that he wouldn't be able to play at all the rest of the season.
And he just added moments ago, and pardon me if I don't have the exact perfect 100% quote here, essentially said if McCullough does not play in the Big 12 tournament, he's not going to be worth a crap in the NCAA tournament. Yeah, that
worth a crap was his words.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you start playing him after the Big 12 tournament, he wouldn't be worth a crap in the NCAA tournament. That is a direct quote from Bill Self 16 minutes ago.
He talked about him needing to practice at least a week before he put him back on the court during a game because everybody saw what he did when he came back a few games ago.
Yeah, so you've got KU's not winning a national title without him. I think that's very fair to say. I don't think I'm surprising anyone with that take because you need all hands on deck. And yeah, having an elite on-ball defender, one of the smarter players in the league, and also someone who has been a reliable scorer this year, you need that come tournament time.
I can't imagine he wouldn't try to give it a go, but I mean, it feels like we've gone backwards on his injury prognosis. And every time we hear news, it's not that it's getting better. It's not that things are improving. It's, if anything, it's the prognosis getting worse. And I feel terrible for McCullough. And I do think it dramatically decreases the ceiling for this Kansas team.
It does, I will say, feel different than the Remy Martin situation. I saw people comparing the two. Remy Martin's injury was a complete, we had only ever heard whispers of anything all year. No one was really sure what was going on. It is very obvious what is going on with Kevin McCullough. He hurt his knee. It's not getting better. It seems fairly cut and dry here. Whereas Remy was what's happening?
Did he hurt his knee or did he hurt his knee?
It was so secretive and weird. And then he got on the floor. My favorite story, I think, from that whole NCAA tournament championship run was all the guys saying, Remy kept telling us all year, just wait until March, I'll be good. And none of us believed him. And then we got to March and suddenly we believed him. He was the most outstanding player of the East Regional. I think it was the East Regional.
Yeah.
I guess it worked. I don't think you can count on that again with Kevin McCullough, but we'll see. So that was KU's action from the weekend. KU's back in action tomorrow night, taking on BYU at Allen Fieldhouse. K-State beat BYU, looked good doing it. And again, I mean, it's desperation time for K-State. You've got to win as much as possible. If you're going to lose, you better keep it close and look as good as possible. Probably going to have to win at least a couple of games in the Big 12 tournament to make it to the big dance. This was a start. You have to start somewhere, and K-State got a great performance from Arthur Kaluma. He's your Big 12 newcomer of the week, and he got a great performance inside, and that was enough.
So they followed the formula to beat BYU, which is, number one, you got to defend the three-point line. And K-State's been a great defensive team all year, and they make BYU uncomfortable, and they never let them get into rhythm shooting the ball. And I think they were 6 of 30 from behind three. And BYU is not athletic enough to beat anybody if they only make 6 3-pointers. That was the biggest difference. It was really stark. We haven't really maybe discussed that with respect to BYU this year because they do. They have shooters. They can put up numbers because they have shooters. But athletically, they were no match for Kansas State. And where that really reflected itself was they couldn't stay in front of Arthur Kaluma. And he had a massive game, 28 points. Tyler Perry, I thought, was exceptional. I thought he played a really good point guard game, had 16 points, was setting his teammates up well. I thought it was as good as Perry has been. And they've got to have their best guys play well. We've talked about this. Their best guys, Kaluma, Perry, and Carter. And Carter wasn't great, but he wasn't bad. He didn't shoot it terribly. He didn't shoot it much. He kind of knows he's in a funk right now, and he's trying to play his way out of it. He finished with 12 points. Those three play well. They're going to have a chance to beat anybody the way they defend, and that's exactly what happened. Their turnovers were a little bit more manageable. They kept those to a manageable number. I thought the big men were probably as good as they have been all season, and I don't just mean in terms of the volume of their scoring, though anytime you get Gasson and McNair into double figures, that's pretty notable. I thought their decision-making, their passing, their off-ball movement, their presence on the floor was more positive than negative. And I haven't always been able to say that about Will McNair in particular. We've kind of picked on Will a little bit at times because he has struggled largely in Big 12 play. I thought he played well. I thought he was exactly what K-State needed him to be on Saturday. And that's not an easy matchup because BYU's got a couple of true bigs. They got the stretch big, my guy Ali Khalifa, who, in addition to looking like he has a cold, he kind of played like he had a cold on Saturday. And then Fus Traore, who's a legitimate like throwback giant of a man at the 5. And K-State held their own with their own bigs. I didn't mention Colbert because he didn't score in double figures, but I thought Colbert played mostly well when he was out there. But they really leaned on Gasson and Colbert, and I thought they both played really well. So it was a strong team performance all around. It was a good 40 minutes of basketball. And now K-State needs 3 more of those in their next 4 games. Because if they win 3 of their next 4, that's going to put them right at 9-9. And we know which 3 it probably has to be because, again, they've won one time in 30 years at Allen Fieldhouse. So we know which games the 3 have to be. And one of them has to be tonight against a very beatable West Virginia team on Big Monday at the Octagon of Doom. Like, this is another game where K-State should come out with good energy. They built a big lead early on. BYU made a little bit of a run, but K-State never let them get comfortable offensively. That's a big factor for them as well. If the big guns play well and they defend the way they usually defend, I have no problem seeing K-State win tonight's game.
I want to give a shout out to Fitz because when I criticized McNair on Wednesday's show last week, he said, well, I'm going to push back on that a little bit. And I think he's done some good things and has made some mistakes, and it paid off. He had a really good game next time out. This is big for K-State tonight, too, because there's stuff left on the table here. And I know NCAA tournament is going to be very difficult at this point, but a much more favorable spot in the Big 12 tournament is not off the table. K-State is tied with Texas at 6-8 in the league. BYU and Oklahoma are both 7-7. BYU plays KU tomorrow at Allen Fieldhouse. I don't think that is going to go especially well for BYU in their first trip as a conference member to Allen Fieldhouse. After that, BYU has TCU at home, at Iowa State, and then versus Oklahoma State. Not an awful schedule, but not the world's easiest schedule either. Oklahoma, who I know they're 19-8 overall, 7-7 in the league. I still really don't trust them at all. They have Iowa State, Houston, Cincinnati, at Texas left. Again, same thing. 2 really hard games, 2 winnable games, even though that Texas game is on the road at Moody, where Texas isn't even all that good over the course of the year. So there is still something for K-State to play for here. It's not out of the question. It'll be difficult, but it's not out of the question to get, what would that be, the number 8 seed in the Big 12 tournament. It's still on the table right now.
You don't want 11 through 14. You don't want to have to go through the double pigtail games just to make your way to the quarterfinal. So K-State did take a big and necessary step in the direction of not having to do that, and winning 2 of their final 4 should probably put them in that spot. I guess it might depend on what the 2 are. But look, they've got to look at this as every night's its own thing. I think sometimes you can get caught up in feeling like, oh, we got to go X and X in our last Y number of games, or we're not going to make the tournament. We got to go. I'm sure right now, like there are people thinking, hey, we got to go 3-1 in our next 4, and it's going to put us in position to be where we want to be on the right side of the bubble on Selection Sunday. You can't think about it like that, I don't think. If you're Jerome Tang in this K-State roster, you got to think about it as, hey, we got to win tonight. We want to give ourselves a chance. We have to win tonight. We have to beat West Virginia tonight. There is no margin for error. We got to go on some 1-game winning streaks and focus on taking care of our business at home in front of our home crowds, which have been great. That has to be the focus tonight.
And I think, listening back to the press conference and stuff from after the game, during the week, Tang talked about needing to get better at the little things and whatever those things were. And then after the game, his immediate thing was, shout out to my assistant coaches. They got to work with the players this week and the players bought in. And then we turned around in 4 or 5 days what we knew we needed to do better. And they did it on Saturday to win.
And I'm going to take a guess. Jerome Tang is pretty online relative to some other K-State coaches of recent vintage. He has seen a lot of people be very mean to Rodney Perry recently. That is where I'm guessing that comment came from.
Yeah.
There have been some K-State fans who have said some not very nice things about assistant coach Rodney Perry recently. So I bet that's where that comment stemmed from Jerome Tang. We'll talk some NFL with Matt Verderame a little bit later on this hour, about 10 minutes from now. But right now, we've got to get to a break, and then the good, the bad, and the ugly from the weekend on 580 Sports Talk. we recap the weekend, shall we? With the good, the bad, and the ugly here on 580 Sports Talk. My good, it was low scoring, but the Sunflower Showdown, one of the biggest wins for KU women's basketball yesterday in a long time, taking down K-State. Good game, tough battle. I listened to both radio broadcasts. I listened to, because I was moving all day yesterday, so there were a handful of trips back and forth from Topeka and Lawrence, so I had plenty of time to listen to the game. And I listened to Brian Smoller and the K-State broadcast here on 580 for a while, checked out the KU broadcast. According to one, incredible defense. According to the other, they were calling a SWAT team to arrest every player on the KU roster.
It was a physical game. There was no question about it. I got to watch. I watched most of the second half.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to a good chunk of the about the whole second quarter, mid first quarter into the second quarter. I was running around and watched about the whole second half. And yeah, it was a physical basketball game. And sometimes when you're an officiating crew and you decide that the game's going to be physical, that means sometimes when you do call a foul, it's going to really stand out among all the other times that you don't call a foul. So I can understand if there might have been a little bit of frustration on the purple side of the Sunflower State coming away from that one. But for me, what it looked like was the more desperate team won the basketball game. And that was a game that KU had to have as they pursue an NCAA tournament berth, which I think anything less than that was going to feel like a disappointment this year for a pretty veteran team who won the women's NIT last year and looking to make that next step, get back in the NCAA tournament. For K-State, I'm shocked that loss dropped them 5 spots in the AP. That is stunning to me. But the more desperate team playing at home, I mean, how many times do we say it when we look at the men's half of the Big 12, that is such an advantage? And I think it was an advantage for the KU women yesterday.
And real quick, just from the KU side of things, one, Smaya Nichols, know that name. She's pretty special. Kansas kid, too. Also, 4th biggest crowd for a women's regular season game in Allen Fieldhouse history, 9,007. Great crowd for that game.
Did you see who was on hand for that game?
Lynette Woodard.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was in the building. I'm glad she has gotten a lot more attention these last couple of weeks. And Caitlin Clark's about to blow past her record in the next game or two, which, I mean, Caitlin Clark's incredible. She deserves it. But I'm glad more people, including Scott Van Pelt on SportsCenter last night, have given a shout out to Lynette Woodard, who's held the all women's college basketball scoring title since 1981.
Yeah. And again, this is not like, oh, we just weren't keeping accurate records back then. No, the NCAA did not want to run women's sports for a very long time. That's why the AIAW existed in the first place. So it's a history of exclusion being exclusionary that the NCAA now suffers for when they don't honor people like Lynette Woodard. So it's nice to see other people doing that.
They took time to talk about that during halftime.
Good. I'm glad.
The ESPN broadcast, and they talked about, that it was basically forced on the NCAA.
Well, I'm glad she's getting the attention she deserves. Absolutely. You're good.
It was good enough weather to get back out on the driving range yesterday.
Hey.
Your boy getting the sticks out. First time in a while, and boy, it looked it. My first 5-6 swings were a little rough, but found a rhythm by the end of the large bucket of balls, which was good. Felt good to get out there, swing the club, get a sweat in. There were a lot of people out. I went out to Cypress Ridge to use their driving range. And on the way back, stopped to get a silly beverage. And the woman at the Casey's decided I didn't need to pay for it and just told me to leave.
All right.
Like literally, I walk up to the counter. She said, "Is that all you have?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Goodbye." I said, "All right.
All right.
You have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I'm going to enjoy my cherry Mountain Dew slushie."
That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Dang, that sounds really good.
That was my good.
You're good?
My good and bad go together.
Oh.
So my good is that while I was just, minding my own business, eating the halftime ice cream at KU on Saturday, I look over my right and I see Dan Schulman and Jay Billis.
TV crew.
They from ESPN, they decided to walk in there and get some ice cream. I was trying to finish up my ice cream. I was about halfway done by the time they got in. But they were in and out of there in an instant. And my bad was I was going to go talk to them and just, kind of mingle and
network,
try to make a contact.
Yeah.
But as I was getting up there, they were both leaving.
Timing is everything.
Yeah.
I was telling you earlier, I was surprised Dan Shulman wanted to eat ice cream at halftime of a game he was calling. Like
that is a nightmare, and yet I still do it sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, I do too, but still.
that G's frozen custard at Seaman High School. I know I shouldn't, and I do every time.
It's just too good. My bad. It sounds a little rude to call it a bad because he's employed and got a multi-year contract, but it's never been more over for Eric Bieniemy than it is right now. Like, he went from coaching Patrick Mahomes and winning Super Bowls to taking a desperation lateral move to now being the offensive coordinator for a team that's going to finish bottom 3 in the Big Ten next year. Like, you want to talk about a fall from grace. And I know it's not all his fault. I know, but
yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
Doesn't look great.
My bad was just watching that Texas team play against Kansas. There's like, on one hand, it is kind of funny that this is happening to Texas. And on the other hand, like, could have gave the job to the substitute teacher and you reap what you sow.
Yeah. Ugly for me, the whole court storming thing. We're going to talk about this in the 4:00 hour a little bit. I am pro court storming. I think it's good. I think it is a bad thing to go after a player. That is a very bad thing. It is a bad thing to not have a plan ahead of time. Nick Timberlake, just a little bit ago, he said, as he was asked about it at KU's media, he said, we actually know, like, we've talked about it. If you think the court is going to get stormed, everyone get to the sideline right away. Like, we have a plan for that, which is good. Also ugly, Jay Billis and Seth Davis saying that if you storm the court, you should be arrested today. Give me a break. Get the hell out of my... I hate Jay Billis. I don't know if I've told you this before. I hate Jay Billis. I think he is such a pompous ass. I can't stand him on TV.
As I was talking about, I was in the room with him.
I know. Well,
you were so excited.
I didn't want to bury it right away. I felt bad. And Seth Davis, I've hated for a long time. I can't stand these guys. Like, the police. I'm not even an anti-police guy. I'm not. But storming the court should get you arrested. Give me a break, dude.
Yeah,
get off your high horse.
That's a wild take. This weekend was too beautiful for me to have an ugly.
Hell yeah. Anything for you real quick?
Yeah. So I got these new in-ear monitors before the show. They showed up at 1:52 from the mail. Shout out USPS, because I know sometimes, they don't get the love they need. But I looked ugly on camera trying to position these in my ears for the first, segment and a half of the show, and they are fully in my ears and around the top of my ears now. So my ugly was I looked ugly on camera while I was trying to manipulate them, and that's why you didn't hear me talk a lot of segment 1.
Matt Verderame's coming up next here on 580 Sports Talk. Can we possibly... Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline is our good pal Matt Verderame, who covers the NFL for Sports Illustrated. He is also the host of the Matt Verderame Show. You can subscribe to that now on Patreon. And don't forget to go follow Matt on Twitter as well, at Matt Verderame. Matt, did you make it safely to Indianapolis?
I did. I got in a couple hours ago, so I'm looking forward to the week ahead.
The most important question, and I'm sure you've been asked this many times being a member of the NFL media, where do you stand on shrimp cocktail?
Big fan. I love shrimp, so it's an easy sell. The sauce that it comes with at St. Elmo's has this incredibly spicy kick, but then it's gone after 3 seconds. I'm not a spicy guy, but it's actually really good. I think it's horseradish in it or whatever it is, but it's excellent. In fact, I think the last time I was at St. Elmo's, I sat down at the table next to you was pretty much the entire Packers coaching staff enjoying a nice meal, and so I'm sure that just about every coaching staff at St. Elmo's tonight, tomorrow, and then all the way through the weekend.
So I've always wondered this because everyone who goes and covers the combine, for those who don't know, St. Elmo's, famous steakhouse in Indianapolis, very famous shrimp cocktail. A lot of NFL media folks like to patronize St. Elmo's during combine week or any other big event that goes on in Indy. Is it hard to sit down at a table, Matt? Everybody who goes, it seems, goes to St. Elmo's. The place can't be stadium size. Is there a wait? Is it hard to get in? How available is St. Elmo's?
It depends. I would say that, I remember, I don't go all the time because to me, it's just such I almost said a word on there I can't say. It's such a traffic jam that, it becomes almost crazy. Plus, I just feel like everybody else there is so much more high profile than I am. I'm this is ridiculous. I don't even belong here. But I went last year, and I walked in without a reservation. I went with a couple former NFL player and a few other people, and we walked right in, no problem. I will say this though, some of these places you hear about, you actually go and you're it's more of a reputation. Their food's incredible. Their food really is very, very good. But Indy is an underrated food town. There's a lot of places to go and get really good food. So, I will tell you that it is my favorite week of the year for traveling, more than the Super Bowl. Anywhere I love going to Indianapolis. Indianapolis is a lot of fun.
As for the combine itself, we're a couple of days away from the drills actually beginning, but that's, one of the ancillary benefits I know of the combine. A lot of it is the interviews and certainly the medicals. Yep. And, I know you've told us before, this is really when free agency starts because all the agents are in town, all the GMs are in town. Everybody gets to, have those kind of backroom discussions. For you, going into this year's combine, what are a couple of the big storylines you're most interested in following, or maybe some of the position groups that you're most interested to see the testing for?
I always look at, first and foremost, and I know it's a cliche answer, quarterbacks, because they drive the narratives. But for me, though, I'm not that interested in, Caleb Williams isn't going to test here, that's fine. And Jaden Daniels and Drake May, you know what those guys are. Those guys are, barring some catastrophic situation, they're going to be top 5 picks, bare minimum. I'm more interested in the Michael Penix Jr.'s, the Bo Nix, the J.J. McCarthy guys who, could go up, could go down. Penix and Nix, I saw them in Mobile. They weren't impressive. I'm curious to see how they test this week, how they do. And then there's even a guy in Tennessee, Joe Milton, who a lot of people think is a late-round pick, but has an obscene arm. The kind of arm that he could go out there and you walk away from this going, oh my God, that kid, who's that? So I'm curious to see that. And then the receivers, again, that second wave of guys, the Pearsalls, the McConkeys, the Brendan Rices, guys like that, all three of which I just mentioned are seniors who aren't the Rome Odunze's, the Marvin Harrison Jr.'s, the Malik Neighbors, the second wave of guys who it's okay, well, who's the fourth guy? Who's the fifth guy? Because at those positions, the fourth and fifth guys, they're going to be first-round picks.
Our guest is Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated, SI.com. Also, the Matt Verderame Show on Patreon, which you can check out if you go find him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. And you can hear him every Monday on the program right here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, I want to ask you about running back. I know that's a less sexy position in the NFL draft than it used to be, but there might be a need for the Kansas City Chiefs at that position this offseason. And they've come away from the draft, the process, I guess, the last 2 years with the running back with the best speed score in the entire draft. Isaiah Pacheco and then Deneric Prince last year out of Tulsa, who was undrafted and spent the year on their practice squad. Any running backs you think bear mentioning or bear watching that could be maybe day 3 targets for the Chiefs as they look for somebody to complement Isaiah Pacheco in the backfield moving forward?
I don't have a specific name of a guy that I look at and go, that guy, that's the guy that I think fits them. Because I agree with you. Look, if they're going to take a running back, it's going to be a day 3 pick. I can't imagine them taking a running back in the first 3 rounds. I just that seems impossible. I actually just did a podcast on the Matt Verderame show this morning, which for people who are wondering, it's a Chiefs-based podcast. So if you're a Chiefs fan, you're in luck. But I talked about what I would do if I were sitting in Brett Veach's chair. And one of the things is I would actually look at a veteran running back for this team. You have Pacheco. McKinnon is 32. Tough to see him coming back. Edwards-Helaire, impossible to see him coming back. Like, if I'm the Chiefs, I'm not spending big money. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they should go get Saquon Barkley. Like, they have their starting running back. But I look at a guy like Austin Eckler and think, okay, he's 29, or he'll be 29 in May, I should say. Give him a 2-year deal for $12 million and say, look, we're going to bring you in to basically be Kimball Anders. Look, you're going to catch 60 to 70 passes. And we don't care. It doesn't matter if you rush for 300 yards or 600 yards. That's ancillary. We want you to come in and basically serve as a guy who can dominate in the red zone in the passing game, a lot like they've done with McKinnon. A guy who on 3rd and short, they can flip the ball out to him. They can split him out like a receiver, and kind of mitigate what has been an issue at receiver the last few years. I think that would be the way I would go if I were Veach. I'm not going to spend big money, but I would spend moderate money to get myself a back who I think can complement the offense both ways.
We talked a little bit about this on the show last week. The Chiefs have, 6 picks in the upcoming draft right now? Do you think they hew pretty close to that number, or do you think what's more likely, that they end up with more picks than that at the end of the draft, or that they end up with fewer picks and maybe are really specific about targeting guys in this particular draft?
I would say it's more likely that they end up with more, because this is a pretty deep draft. And so I could see them trading back. Like, the one thing that's fascinating when they pick 32nd with the Chiefs now has become a trend. But when you pick at that spot, that is in some ways the most coveted pick of the draft outside of the top 4 or 5 picks, because that is the last pick that holds a 5th round option or a 5th year option. And so if let's say you're a team, you're sitting there early 2nd round, okay, and you want to draft a quarterback, and maybe Michael Penix is available. Pick a name. You're going to call the Chiefs and say, "Hey, listen, we'll make a trade for it for the 32nd pick. We'll move up 6 spots, and we'll give you our 2nd, and then we'll even go beyond the old trade value chart, because that 5th year option means a lot. It's an extra year of control, especially at an expensive position. So I could see the Chiefs on the first night of the draft saying, "Hey, look, you know what? We'll move back 5 spots. We're willing to do it." Now, of course, it depends how the board falls. They may be in a position where they go, "Hey, look, this guy, we don't think he's going to get 37, 38. We want to take him right now." But I could see the Chiefs trying to get 7, 8 picks out of this draft. I would be surprised if they really went all in early in the draft. I don't think they still do that with only 6 picks to work with.
Matt Verderame of Sports Illustrated is our guest here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. And Matt, the end of last week, the salary cap number came out. Obviously, more than everyone had anticipated, more than the $250 million that was kind of leaked out there, reported out there. Do you see the Chiefs changing kind of what their mode of attack is going to be now that there's more money than they had anticipated?
Well, I would put it this way. Every team now has more money than they anticipated. I remember, a couple weeks ago asking some people around the league, like, what do you think Cap's going to be? And, a lot of times you get that answer, like, well, we're anticipating different scenarios. But pretty much all the scenarios were between 245 and 250. So 255 was definitely more than most people thought was going to be available. I don't think anybody would argue that. What I do think it does is now that you know that the cap is going to be 255 this year, that makes you think, okay, well, it's going to be even higher than we thought it would be for next year and the year after that. And so you might be more willing to restructure and extend and push some money into the future. And that's where I think the Chiefs might have an advantage because they have Mahomes' contract. Like if I'm the Chiefs, if I'm Brett Veach, you can extend, you can restructure and get to $37 million in savings. I don't know that they have to do that, but they might be able to. I think 20 is a reasonable number and gives them a ton of flexibility. Like there's a world. Let's put it this way: there's a world where if they restructure Mahomes and they cut MVS, they very well could sign Chris Jones and tag Snead. I mean, and when I say sign Jones, I mean like amazing, 4 and 110. Like they could do that, and they would be fine both this year and into the future. So I think if you're the Chiefs, that cap number being high benefits you in the sense that you now can push money. And maybe you look at it and go, you know what, Joe Tooney's got a $26.9 million hit this year. It's the last year of the contract. Do you extend him? Do you just say, you know what, like let's give him a 1 or a 2 year extension? He's still an all-pro. Who cares that he's 32? He's playing great. It opens up more avenues for the Chiefs to create some space.
Finishing things up with Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated and the Matt Verderame Show, joining us here on 580 Sports Talk via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Again, go check out the Matt Verderame Show, a Chiefs-focused podcast over on Matt's Patreon, and, of course, all of his work covering the NFL at SI.com and in Sports Illustrated. Matt, as we gear up for free agency coming up officially in just a couple of weeks, when you look at this year's free agent pool, if I asked you for a player who's going to be this year's Christian Kirk, a player who comes kind of out of nowhere and gets a massive free agent contract, what would be a name or two who you think might fit that bill?
It's always interesting because there always are those guys, right? There's always like 2 or 3 guys you look at and both directions. 2 or 3 guys, I can't believe that's all the guy got. And 2 or 3 guys you look at and go, wow, okay, that was a lot more than I thought he was going to get. The receiver market is really interesting because the draft is so loaded that I look at the receiver market and I wonder, is that actually a lower market than people think? Like, is that a market where you go, wow, that guy only got 1 year, that guy only got 2 years? But the one guy at receiver that I could just see some teams talking themselves into for like 4 and 80 is Gabe Davis. I could just see that because he's big and he's physical and he's had a handful of games where he's been dominant. Like, I could see a world where some team with a boatload of cap space just goes, yeah, he's great and he's huge and that works for us. He's a guy. You look at the offensive line. There's nobody that stands out to go, that guy's just a great player. I'll give you one name that I think like people in the league expect to make a big contract here, but I don't know that nationally it would be the case. Is Justin Madubuike of Baltimore? Like, I don't think people realize how great he was this year at defensive tackle for the Ravens. He had, I think it was 12 and a half sacks, had a sack against Kansas City in the AFC title game. He's legitimately great, and he's coming off his rookie deal. And if he doesn't get tagged, like, I could see somebody sign him for $100 million. The other guy, by the way, that I have had people in the league say, just watch and see what happens, is Chase Young. He's a name. He's a former number 2 overall pick. And that's one of those things, like, I could see him sitting on the market for a month and signing for 1 and 5. I could also see some team saying, hey, how do you feel about 5 and 75? Because we saw Randy Gregory get that contract with 16 career sacks. It matters what your name is. It matters where you were drafted. I could see Chase Young getting more money than anybody thinks he's going to get.
Real quick on the Gabe Davis note, we were talking about him on the show just the other day. How good is he? Because we all remember his breakout game was the 13 seconds game against the Chiefs in the postseason. We remember that, in the fantasy football community, they went nuts over him the next year drafting. Like you couldn't draft him high enough in fantasy the next year. And it was, he's the next big thing. He's going to emerge. Maybe one day he'll be the number one over Stephon Diggs. There was all that talk.
Right.
But like,
right.
Since then, he's just kind of been a guy. Like, he's in his regular season career plus postseason, he's gone over 80 yards 15 times in over 70 games. Like, how good of a player is he actually?
I think he's fine. I think he's a number 2 receiver. I don't think he's more than that. And the concern I would have, depending upon who my quarterback is, if I'm general manager of a team, like, he played with Josh Allen and basically no-showed half the games this year. What happens if I sign him and my quarterback's like the 20th best quarterback in the league? Then what? And if you're signing him to a deal, let's say somebody gives him $3 and $50, like, that's real money. That's borderline at this time in the NFL, borderline number 1 money. Like, if I'm paying him that, I'm expecting him to go out and be a star for me. And I don't know that he's that. I look at him as a guy who if I wanted to pay him, which I wouldn't, but if I did, I'd be looking at, hey man, I'll give you like 12 a year. You're a number 2 all day. Like, I'm giving him like Juju money, right? Like 3 and 36, something in that, Jacoby Myers money, and saying, yeah, I'm good with that because I think you can get me 800 yards, especially if I got a good quarterback, 800-900 yards. But am I relying on him to be the top dog on the outside for me every week? No, I would not be comfortable with that.
Matt, we appreciate the time, my friend. We'll talk to you soon. Enjoy Indy.
Sounds good. Take care.
That's Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated. 580 Sports Talk on this Monday afternoon. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. That is Dan Lucero. Just the two of us for the rest of the show today. Spencer Dupuis is on his way to Manhattan for K-State versus West Virginia tonight. Pregame begins at 5. That's why we're done early. Tip-off at 6 o'clock. You can hear all the action, pregame, postgame, halftime, and all the game itself right here on 580 WIBW.
And that means I'm behind the console for the final hour, and that's not an unfamiliar place for me to be, but it is unfamiliar to me to be here with this camera angle.
It's definitely a little bit more of a Big Brother angle.
It really is. Yeah, it does. It feels like literally like the TV show Big Brother, like the camera up there hidden in the corner.
You're going to hear that weird, deep voice over in that room now, and you're going to have to, do some sort of wacky routine to protect yourself this week.
My arms are really in the shot.
Yeah, that's true.
They're really in the shot. Clearly, I didn't get enough sun yesterday when I went out to the driving range.
It was all the old cameras last time you were in there.
Yeah. So it was the straight on, right in your face camera, and I'd gotten grown accustomed to that over time, but no, this is the angle everybody has of me for the next hour.
Get a great shot of what's the miner's name?
Maxey.
Yeah.
Nuggets were on TV last night. Won, beat the Warriors. They own the Warriors. They make the Warriors look tiny. I don't care what anybody says. The Warriors are not beating the Nuggets in a 7-game series. That's not happening.
In fairness, the Warriors are a pretty small team and are also not all that good.
I mean, they've been red hot.
Well,
they're up to ninth in the West. They've been hot. They were at home last night, and Jokic went for 32, 16, and 16.
I saw this must have been on SportsCenter last night. His third game ever with 30, 15, and 15.
Yeah.
Which in and of itself is unbelievable. What is even more unbelievable is that's the second most such games all time. He's still 8 behind Oscar Robertson.
Yeah.
Amazing it's not Wilt, honestly.
Yeah, that's one of the rare things that Jokic has done that only Wilt Chamberlain has also done. It's just him and Wilt on the list. But anyway, no, I've got my Maxey the Miner stuff on today, my throwback Nuggets gear on today, in celebration of a very enjoyable national TV win last night. I haven't told my wife they're going to be on national TV a lot the next 2 weeks.
Oh yeah. I mean,
we might get a little behind on SVU or Chicago PD or something.
Frankly, more than just the next couple of weeks, because we're not that far from the playoffs.
No,
either.
We're really not.
And,
we're really not. We're getting close.
They will be featured a lot.
Yes.
A lot coming up. In this final hour of 580 Sports Talk, we'll get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Now we're earlier than normal, but we're off an hour earlier than normal. And we do have plenty of headlines to get to today. We've also got What Is Wrong With You and little court storming talk. That's the big talk of college basketball since Saturday when Kyle Filipowski got hurt, the Duke standout during the court storm at Wake Forest. So we'll have a little counterpoint coming up at the bottom of this hour, plus the final word, plus your thoughts from the YouTube stream. Unfortunately, as we've told you already, text line is down right now. We will get it up as soon as we can. That is unfortunately not something that Dan and I work on individually, not something that the two of us can handle, but we will do the best we can to get to any comments you do have for us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube stream and our YouTube channel. Head to YouTube, search 580 Sports Talk. That's the best way to find us. Appreciate the kind words from the folks who wished well to my wife and I for buying a house and moving full-time to Topeka. No longer a long commute for me. Full-time now in town. So looking forward to that and getting to be a little bit more local here to, I've spent a large portion of my life in Topeka already for various reasons, but to actually live here full-time, very excited about that. So appreciate the kind words from the folks on YouTube. All right, let's get to today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. First one for me, realignment. It's back on the menu. Had some kind of out of nowhere realignment news from earlier today. We've got a new member of the MAC. And not only is it a new member of the MAC, but it's a return to the MAC.
Once again,
UMass is headed back to the Mid-America Conference. They were members of the MAC 2012 to 15, I believe it was, but they were football only. And the MAC said, hey, we need you to call in or to join us for basketball too. Like we can't just be a football member. And UMass said, nah, we're good. We actually like the A10. So the MAC said, okay, then kick rocks. Get out. So UMass has been independent in football since. Everything else in the A10 Well, now they said, you know what? We need a home for football again. We think that football is going to drive the bus for us. That is going to be our main focus. We want to go back to the MAC, and we're going to put football there. And this time we are going to bring basketball. In fact, we're going to bring everything but hockey because you don't sponsor hockey. So we're bringing everything else, and we're going to the MAC.
Put another way, Massachusetts said, they tried to tell you so, but I guess you didn't know. As the saddest story goes, baby, now they got the flow.
I see you reading
They knew it from the start, baby, when you broke their heart, that they had to come again because they were in the MAC at one time and show you that they'd win. You lied to them all those times that you said you loved them. You lied to them. Yes, you tried. You lied to them, even though you knew you'd die for them. You lied to them. Yes, you cried. But now UMass is returning to the MAC. There it is.
Return of the MAC.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Best ad libs.
I love college football. I love everything about college. Well, like the game itself and the pageantry of it. I love that part of college football. I don't necessarily love the big wig part of college football. And that being said, I don't like this. I don't think this is a good move for UMass. I really don't. And again, the two sports that UMass cares about the most are football and hockey, which probably benefit or have no change here. But like, they were a founding member of what became the Atlantic 10 Conference. Like, they fit with the Atlantic 10 Conference. And while I know they are not UConn in basketball, obviously, look at what UConn did. They tried this and they said, you know what? This sucks. Like, this is not enjoyable. This is not good for us.
Well, the biggest difference was they tried to play big time football. It wasn't just UConn trying to play like Division I football. They tried to get in with the big boys. They tried to get in, essentially, they tried to play Power 5 football.
Yeah, they were on the first conference out of the P5, essentially.
And that is what really didn't work for UConn. And that did, I think, have a negative effect on their basketball a little bit over time.
I don't know, man. I get that it's a money thing. I get that it's an exposure thing. And I understand that UMass clearly wants to have some sort of more prestige and exposure with its football team. I get that. But sometimes fit is a good enough, like, you can just live with having a good fit and that being the end of it. And Atlantic 10 was the best fit for UMass.
I just don't know what UMass's athletic identity is.
Me either.
It doesn't sound like they do really either. I think you have a lot of people around here, though, that wish UMass basketball well. Obviously, Frank Martin running the program in year 2 out there.
And here's the thing. Basketball-wise, if you're UMass and you think you are at least a decent basketball program, you should be in the NCAA tournament every single year because the MAC is awful at basketball.
Yeah.
Awful basketball conference. So if you think you're worth a damn at all, you should get into the NCAA tournament every single year.
Go win that league. Go win that league's automatic bid every year. Yeah.
But like the A10 is occasionally a 2-bid league. Like that's a good mid-major.
Sometimes more than that.
League. Yeah. That's a good league with a lot of proud programs. What are you actually trying to accomplish? Like, who do you want to be? Do you want to be a part of a league where basketball matters and you're part of that fraternity of programs, or do you just want to be a nobody? Because there are established MAC football programs, and you're not going to be one of them. No one cares about MAC basketball. No one at all. MAC teams are featured on Bad Beats on Scott Van Pelt Sports Center all the time. There's never a crowd at any of them.
Yeah, the only time I ever consider the thought of Toledo basketball.
Yeah, no one cares. No one does.
Strictly theoretical to me otherwise. Like, I suppose they must have a program.
And UMass even already has a problem in a state that really doesn't care about college sports. You're already second fiddle to Boston College.
Yeah.
In, again, a sport with very little recruiting and with very little fan interest in the sport. Why wouldn't you want to be part of something that at least some people care about? I understand, but at the same time, I don't understand. It just doesn't make sense to me. But there's your big D1 FBS realignment news for today. The MAC is adding UMass.
First headline for me, the new AP Top 25 polls for men's and women's basketball came out earlier today. Kansas with a 2-spot jump in the men's poll. They're up to number 7 overall after going 1-0 this past week with the win over Texas. Houston is the new number 1 after UConn lost last week to Creighton. Houston receives 53 of the 62 first-place votes, and they are number 1 for the first time this season. Purdue up a spot to number 2. UConn down 2 spots to number 3. Tennessee and Marquette both jump into the top. Well, Tennessee up a spot to 4th, and Marquette jumps into the top 5, up 2 spots to 5th this week. Arizona down 2 spots to number 6. Then Kansas, Iowa State down 2 spots to 8th. North Carolina up a spot to number 9. Duke down 2 spots to number 10. 11 through 15, Auburn, Creighton, Illinois, Alabama, and Baylor. Creighton jumps 3 spots. They beat UConn. Then they got drilled by St. John's yesterday.
Yeah.
Strange week for the Blue Jays. Baylor down 4 spots after they lost in overtime at home to Houston. Kentucky, St. Mary's, South Carolina, Washington State, San Diego State rounding out the top 20. Dayton, Utah State, Gonzaga, Florida, and South Florida into the top 25 for the first time this year. Round out the top 25. Tough week for the Big 12. BYU, Texas Tech, and TCU are the first 3 teams in the others receiving votes category. Both the Cougars and the Red Raiders dropping out of the top 25 this week. As for the women's top 25, we mentioned this earlier. K-State went 1-1 this past week. They beat a top 25 ranked West Virginia team at home, and then they lost on the road yesterday in the Sunflower Showdown by 5 points. Apparently, you add all that together, that is a 5-spot drop in the AP top 25. They moved down to number 15 overall. South Carolina, still the unanimous number 1. Ohio State, Texas, Stanford, Virginia Tech, the top 5. Iowa, USC, UCLA, LSU, UConn in the top 10. And then the 11 through 15 ahead of Kansas State are Oregon State, North Carolina State, Colorado, and Indiana before you get to Kansas State. Oklahoma's 20th. Baylor is 21st. West Virginia in the rare tie for 25th. Or 24th, I should say.
24th, yeah. That seems like too steep. I mean, here's the thing with the poll. You look at it and you say, well, that's too deep of a drop. The thing you really have to look at, I haven't seen the point totals, because it's not like one big group all votes at once on who goes where, because it's all the different polls that get submitted. So it's sometimes not as simple as, well, you dropped 5 spots. The fact that there was enough that happened to drop K-State 5 spots after those games, that was kind of crazy. Like, you won one and you lost a rivalry game on the road where you haven't won in 3 years already by 3 points.
Where, yeah, it was I said by 5. It was by 3. They got it to 3, and Terrence Sides had a look at it from the top of the key at the buzzer and almost banked in. They busted play. Kansas defended it really well in the final seconds, but K-State still had a shot to tie it and send it to overtime. And yeah, I don't know why that's a 5-spot drop. I've been confused all year long. Like, they've been a top 10 team for a solid month and a half before this, and yet people were still talking about them as a 4 seed, a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. So I don't know. Like, my feel for how the polls work and how bracketology works in the women's game is not the same as my feel for it in the men's game. I just followed it closely, more closely for longer. I will say this, though, at a time where it feels like there is more attention, there is more airtime, there is more oxygen for women's college basketball than there has ever been before. This is peak women's college basketball right now, it feels like. It is very good for both Kansas and Kansas State that they are in the conversation. That Kansas State has been a top 10, top 15 team this year. That Kansas has played really well. They're above 500 in the Big 12, and they've got a chance at an NCAA tournament berth as well. Something you can capitalize on in recruiting. Is something you can capitalize on in terms of attendance. It's something you can capitalize on in terms of popularity. It's exciting. It's really cool to see this gain traction and be something not only that we're bringing up more, but people want us to talk about this more.
Yeah.
And not like you're not being mean. You're not sending, your carrier pigeons, since our text line's down, carrier pigeons saying, hey, talk women's basketball or we're storming the castle. No, it's just like there's an appetite to talk about this. And that's pretty cool that we have 2 teams that are good and worth discussing right here in the Sunflower State.
K-State's obviously making it to the NCAA tournament. I hope KU gets it. I hope this was enough. KU's got to take on a bad UCF team later this week. Should win that one, although it is on the road. And then you get a good Oklahoma team to round out Big 12 play. Hopeful this was enough to get KU in, but we'll see. It would be a tough pill to swallow after that great year a year ago.
Right now, according to the ESPN bracketology, Kansas is one of the last 4 in.
Okay, so play-in game then.
Yeah, it would appear so that they would they'd have a play. Well, maybe not. No, they wouldn't be in one of the play-ins.
No, all right.
They wouldn't be one of those 11s.
Would happily take that. Where is the women's first 4? Do you know?
I honestly don't.
I don't know where that is either. We're gonna find out though, because that's an interesting. Because the men, I mean, you go to Dayton. We're gonna find this out right now. Because I'm sure I would not be the first person who would be learning this. Well, I can't find it. It's not. Why doesn't it come up as easily when you're looking for the women's tournament as it does for the men's? See,
we're not all the way there yet.
No,
we haven't all the way evolved.
By the way, while we're talking college basketball, next headlines, I'll just pair these together. One icon staying with a program, one who after the season will not be staying with their program. Greg McDermott, head coach of Creighton, he is going to get a new contract with the Blue Jays that, according to Tom Shattle of the Omaha World Herald, it's a contract extension that will allow McDermott to retire at Creighton. It is not quite done yet. Sounds like it is going to happen. There have been some whispers recently that McDermott would be candidate number 1 for the Ohio State job. Apparently, I did not know this. Apparently, there has been some talk that McDermott and the current athletic director, or at least athletic administration at Creighton, don't get along super well. If Creighton ever let him go, I can't even put into words how dumb that would be. He is a great coach. There are few coaches that can say really dumb things publicly that get out and then get criticized by their own players and they survive it. But McDermott made that comment about the, all feet on the plantation a couple of years ago. Yeah. And players were like, hey, coach, why the hell did you say that? And he was like, hey, man, that was dumb. That was a bad comment. I shouldn't have done it. He got in some trouble, got in some hot water with his team. All that has happened since then is he has become more popular and they've become even better. Like that doesn't happen. Like that takes a special guy to bounce back from that. And he's an awesome coach and they play fun basketball. They've got a good team and they should never let him go. He should retire at Creighton. So that's good for that program. I really enjoy watching Creighton play. I think it's a very aesthetically pleasing style of basketball. On the other side, a player who is going to be done after this year, Zach Edey, who's about to win his 2nd consecutive National Player of the Year honor. He has said, he told John Rothstein today, among others, he's not going to use his 5th year of eligibility. He's got a COVID year left. He is not going to take it. He is going to go to the NBA. In a normal NBA draft year, there's probably at least a discussion about it. This year's NBA draft is on pace to be one of the worst of all time, just in terms of talent available. And he said, you know what? I might not get another chance to go be a first-round pick. I might not get another chance to be a top 20 or even lottery pick. This year, I've got a chance, so I am going to go do it. And frankly, he would be foolish not to. So, makes sense for Zach Edey. He's about to be the first player since Ralph Sampson to be back-to-back National Player of the Year, which pretty cool. He'll be a college basketball Hall of Famer, all of that.
I've seen him at the tail end of the first round in some mocks. I don't read a ton of NBA mock drafts.
Especially not this far out.
Yeah, but the ones I have seen have suggested that he's got a chance to go late first, early second round. And I don't know what his pro career looks like, but he's 7'4". You would think there'd be room in the NBA for a tall guy with some touch who can defend a little bit. But again, NBA is just a different game. And it's a different level of athleticism. And is Zach Edey going to be able to get to the point where he's athletic enough that the more athletic big men in the league don't treat him like a turnstile? That's going to be the question. Because like you can throw it in the post to 7'4" and you can make some things shake. He's got a little touch. He can pass. He's a good offensive player. But Drew Timmy's a good offensive player. And Drew Timmy's not in the NBA.
You know who I think of even more so than Timmy? You know who was incredible at Iowa?
Luka Garza.
Luka Garza is the 15th man on the roster out of 15 for the Timberwolves. Is he still with the Timberwolves?
Last check.
Yeah, like he's the last guy on the roster. And I think he might still play some G League games. I'm not super sure. But that's,
and again,
that's who he is. And he was huge and really good at the college level.
The difference for Edey is he's huge.
Yeah, he's
7'4".
Yeah.
You can block some shots. You can do some things around the rim defensively just by being tall. Like you could play, like, I don't know, you put him in, play zone for a quarter, have him down low and block some shots around the rim. I don't know. I don't know what the NBA future looks like, but it seems like there at least is a pro future for him. And so he's right to go pursue it.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Got some NFL headlines from the weekend. We'll just go ahead and sprint through some NFL stuff. We know some players who will not be franchise tagged, and we know one prominent player who will be. We'll start with him. That's T. Higgins. The standout wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals is expected to be franchise tagged when the tag deadline arrives. The tag for wide receivers is $21.816 million. And that would be the deal that Higgins would be stuck with the Bengals if they don't come to a long-term deal agreement before July 15th. So we've been wondering, okay, what is the offense going to look like for the Bengals when they have to pay Chase and they have to pay Joe Burrow? And they're already paying Burrow. What are they going to do with T. Higgins? At least the answer for now is that they're going to tag him. I feel like that's prelude to a trade. I think they're going to trade T. Higgins.
Interesting.
I think that makes the most sense at this point, is to do a tag and trade. Because I don't think there's a path towards keeping him long term, and I think the $21 million cap hit is prohibitive for the Bengals for this coming season.
So I did not know this until I saw someone share a blog post earlier that said the Bengals still had room to work, and I said I don't think that's true. Both Over the Cap and Spotrac have them at still $50 million available, even with the tag on T. Higgins. That being said, that feels tagging a wide receiver when you've got two. Like if you were to tag Jamar Chase and he was your only guy, yeah, I mean, he's an elite wide receiver. He's your number one, no duh. To tag a second wide receiver, though, that feels very much like an all-in kind of move. And the Bengals should be, like, they should think of themselves that way. They played in a Super Bowl just 2 years ago. Like, they should feel that way. But I don't know. I mean, in terms of roster construction, is that the best use of $21 million for this team?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it is.
I don't know. I like Higgins.
Yeah, I think he's a really good player.
He also didn't have a great year overall, but also Burrow didn't play a lot.
Yeah. I think somebody's going to value him like a number one, and I don't think it's going to be like the Tyreek Hill trade, but I think that the Bengals could get some picks for T. Higgins to help their roster, flesh out their roster a little bit, so that they are a little deeper and can withstand. I mean, no team withstands an injury to their quarterback when their quarterback is that good. Like, you don't, but so much they could do. But they lost a lot of other key guys last year to injury too. DJ Reader, losing him down the stretch, that might have helped them make the playoffs. They would have had him available. So I do. I think they're going to tag and trade him. That's kind of, I don't have any, it's not NFL insider Dan Lucero talking here. I just feel like that's probably
I can see it.
The most prudent course of action. We also know which players won't be franchise tagged. The Las Vegas Raiders are not expected to tag running back Josh Jacobs.
Yep.
The New York Giants aren't going to tag Saquon Barkley. The Dallas Cowboys are not expected to tag Tony Pollard. And the Tennessee Titans are not going to tag Derrick Henry. So there's going to be a lot of running backs, veteran running backs on the free agent market. Now, we had Matt Verderame on the program earlier, and he discussed free agent running backs and says that the Chiefs might be in the market for a veteran back in free agency if Jerick McKinnon doesn't return, if Clyde Edwards-Helaire doesn't return. Certainly don't expect Edwards-Helaire to return. We don't see Austin Eckler the same way that Matt does. Matt thinks there's some juice left in the tank with Eckler as a pass catching option, like a souped up McKinnon in the pass catching game. If the Chiefs decided to pursue him.
Mhm.
But a lot of options out there, and to be interested to see which of these guys, if any of them, get a long-term, get a multi-year contract.
So 2 things here real quick, and we will get to a break in just a moment. If you're going to play for the Chiefs, you got to pass block, especially if you're RB2. You have got to pass protect. Entering this past season, I don't have updated numbers for this. I can't find a 2023 ranking, but I can tell you in 2022, the top 2 pass blocking running backs in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus, Saquon Barkley, number 1, Tony Pollard, number 2. You can probably get Pollard for cheaper. Pollard had a down year for the Cowboys. He was not what they thought he was going to be. But as a number 2 option for the previous 2 years, he was really good. I mean, he was better than Zeke. He just had a smaller workload. That feels like a guy who would make sense for the Chiefs as a number 2 running back, a guy who can carry the load if needs be, can start for you if Pacheco is out for a game or 2, and can pass protect on 3rd down. That seems like a good fit. I would go with Tony Pollard. Without the context of the Chiefs, though, if I gave you you have carte blanche to give a 1-year contract to a running back at a competitive market price. Saquon, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, what would be your big board of those 4? How would you rank those 4? If you were going to rank them in terms of who would I give a 1-year deal to?
Pollard, Henry,
Saquon, Jacobs.
Saquon, I think, class by himself when it
Okay.
comes to those guys. Probably Henry.
Mhm.
I think he's the oldest in the group, but
Yes.
like, I saw him in his last game. Like, it looked like there might still be a little bit of juice there.
Mhm.
At the very least, he's going to help you around the goal line. And then probably Jacobs and then Pollard.
I would go the same way. I could see an argument for putting Henry number 1 because it's something, he is kind of the last of a dying breed. Like, of all the great running backs in the NFL, how many are built like Derrick Henry? Well, I mean, no one's built like Derrick Henry, but how many have a style like Derrick Henry?
No, they're not like those upright runners.
Yeah, they're just going to run you over. Like, there aren't really any of those left. And the thought of that being your secondary option
Mm-hmm.
is kind of terrifying. Like, I think of a team, my favorite team, their first runner, Aaron Jones, more physical than he gets credit for, but you think of him more as a finesse running back, right?
Yes.
Having that be 1st and 2nd down, and then on 3rd and 2, you bring in Derrick Henry. Like, oh God, that's kind of scary. Like, a team that could use him as a secondary punch, that's sort of frightening. That being said, Saquon is a different kind of talent too.
Yes. I think if any, he's obviously the most likely to get a multi-year deal. And I think somebody's going to give him one. I just don't know if the average annual value is going to be anywhere near what he'd like it to be. And so I think if he signs, it might be pretty late in the process.
Yeah.
Because I think he's going to not hold out, but he's going to look for something that's,
Mhm.
What he feels he deserves. But the market is going to tell him that what he's actually worth is very different.
Also, if you're a running back at this point, why would you go to minicamp? What's the point?
Yeah, absolutely not.
What is the point of that? We made first time out here in this 4 o'clock. Come back. We got one talk and a final word before we send you off to K-State Hoops. That's all coming up in this final 25 minutes of 580 Sports Talk. Time for What Is Wrong With You here on 580 Sports Talk, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications, saving you time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to metal with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. I told this to Dan earlier today. I think we have the leader in the clubhouse for the most violent edition of What Is Wrong With You of all time.
Yeah.
I'm going to start. We're going to Missouri. We're going to West Plains, Missouri, where we meet Tori Thompson, who has worked in law enforcement for the Howell County Sheriff's Office for 20 years. But when a man appeared to try and cash in on an insurance policy by staging a bloody farm equipment accident, it became the man's strangest of his career. The would-be fraud and gruesome scenes are part and parcel of Thompson's job, but the combination of the two is odd. This is the writing of the Springfield News Leader, by the way. Back in November, the Howell County Sheriff's Office sent out a vague press release to local media about a situation involving a Willow Springs man who lost his feet in an apparent, quote, staged incident with a brush hog, which is a rotary mower attached to a tractor. Lost was a literal term, as the severed feet could not be found. The case recently was closed, and Thompson, the law enforcement officer responsible for the case, detailed the incident with the News Leader. It was a poorly executed plan, he said. I've never seen anything quite like it. When the call came into emergency responders, it was described as involving a man whose feet were severed by brush hogging. However, Thompson said it was apparent quickly that the incident was staged. The feet were freshly severed. That much was true. However, they weren't sure who that immediately applied tourniquets to the severed feet, to the severed legs of this 60-year-old paraplegic. He was paralyzed below the waist.
Okay.
He had called up a buddy from Florida as part of a harebrained insurance fraud scheme.
My favorite kind of insurance fraud scheme, the harebrained kind.
His buddy came up and just axed off his feet, which he could not feel. He was paralyzed. He did not have use of his feet. So they decided they were going to just lop him off, claim that it was a farming accident, and try to reap insurance money from it. Here's the real crux. That's insane. Like, that is completely deranged. Here's the thing, though. No one ever had charges pressed because they never actually filed the insurance claim. The guy who had his feet cut off, he didn't do anything illegal. He just had his feet cut off. The guy who actually did the chopping never filed the insurance claim. So they can't charge him with anything. And now all we ended up with is a guy with no feet and a pair of feet that were later found in a bucket behind a used tire.
What?
They never filed the claim. This whole scheme to cut off this guy's feet, and they never even filed the claim. What? So they can't arrest him. They can't charge him. They just committed they amputated his feet. Trying to commit insurance fraud.
Like, I could see him thinking, man, I could use a little extra cash.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not really using these.
And they never even tried.
Oh my hell.
The lieutenant, by the way, said that it was clear that the cuts could not have been done by this piece of machinery. They were just clean cuts. I had to check with Dan and Spencer today to see if this is okay. We don't usually have gore like this, but no one died. These people were just idiots.
No.
And they decided to never even try.
That is.
They didn't even get to the fraud part.
Didn't have the stomach for it.
Just the grievous bodily harm part. Truly sickening.
Yeah, you know, I'll cut your feet off, but I draw the line on the actual crime here being committed. I'll put you in the hospital for weeks, but you might die, get gangrenous. You might not be able to feel it, but gangrene doesn't care if you can feel it or not.
This paragraph's incredible. Annoyed by the resources it wasted on the situation, the sheriff's office considered pursuing criminal charges for filing a false police and EMS report, but the man was so severely injured, it would have been an arduous process to even get him to the jail after a lengthy stay at a hospital.
Ugh.
They didn't even try to commit fraud after cutting the dude's feet off. It's insane. Truly Like, this is so out of body experience dumb. I can't believe it.
Yeah, man, I don't have a lot to say about that one. I'm kind of at a loss for words. Here is one that is less gory, but almost had a similar end game, I guess.
Violent.
Also violent. We're going to Kego Harbor, Michigan. 7:40 p.m. Friday, February 16th. A couple in their mid to late 50s dined at El Camino restaurant. The man and the woman disputed the service and food at the restaurant and left without paying the full amount of their bill.
Oh.
After leaving, they got in their Mercedes C-Class sedan, and there's a partial license plate in the story, so we're going to find these people eventually. But as they began to drive away, their server ran out to confront them and told them they needed to pay the rest of their bill. They laughed at her. Their car stopped as the server stood in front of it. Then the driver backed it up to go around her. The server moved in front of the car again, so the driver knocked her over and ran over her legs.
Horrible.
The waitress was taken to a hospital to be treated for her injuries. A person of interest has been identified, but anyone with information is being asked to contact Kego Harbor Detective Robert Barnes.
You know, most servers at restaurants are so underpaid and overworked that they wouldn't even bother. Like, hey, my money, whatever.
Right.
I can't imagine hitting someone with my car.
Well, if you're the type of person that would just laugh at somebody, like, hey, yeah, you need to pay like the full bill. Like, what kind of nerve you got to laugh at that? Like, no, I'm not paying the full bill.
Insane.
Like, if you got your full meal, you pay the full bill. Even if you didn't like the meal, if they didn't refund it, you pay the bill. Pay the bill. Take the L on a lousy cut of steak or whatever it is. You take the L. You have to take the L. No, you run over the waitress instead.
It'd be like that sometimes, man. Like, not every meal is going to be great. Holy crap. That's crazy.
Hate those people.
Hate them. Wow, you got a real couple of peaches here. Who you got? Look, I'll go first. They cut the man's feet off and then they cut his feet off for the sake of committing fraud and then didn't even try to commit the fraud in the end. They just gave up.
Man, if I'm the guy without the feet, I'm kind of mad. Like, we didn't even try?
Yeah, right? Jail wasn't worth this?
What was this for?
For who?
My feet for what? Yeah, that obviously wins, and I hope we can beat it, but I find that unlikely.
That is an insane story. And it wins today in What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. Coming up next, there was some major court-storming drama in college hoops this weekend. We'll break it down next on 580 Sports Talk. Saturday, we had a major upset in the ACC in college basketball. Wake Forest knocking off Duke. Always fun to watch Duke lose. And normally when Duke loses on the road, especially to a not very good team, when Kansas loses on the road, North Carolina, Kentucky, the home fans storm the court. They run on the court to celebrate, jump around, do whatever, which I have always been a proponent of. And I know a lot of KU fans don't feel that way. Just act like you've been there. Brother, they probably haven't been there before. Like, I have no problem with it. As long as you don't hit players. As long as you stay away from them, fine. And I think more schools have done a good job of that. K-State, they didn't storm the court against KU this year, but they had the yellow rope ready to go to cordon off the players from the fans. Ohio State did that when they beat Purdue a couple games ago. They had a cord ready to keep everybody separate. Wake Forest did not. And their fans ran on the floor, and Kyle Filipowski, who is one of Duke's best players, the stud sophomore, got run over and ended up hurting his knee. Not sure if he's going to play next time out for Duke. Think he'll be okay, but he did get banged up. And now there's been a lot of discourse. There's always discourse these days whenever some big event happens. And it's fine, it's not a big deal, it's a one-time thing, whatever, versus the other extreme, which is Jay Billis and Seth Davis arguing that students should literally be arrested for running on the court right now, which, by the way, no, that is a horrible idea. And I can't believe that a lawyer like Jay Billis would come up with that idea. Anyway, I still think court storming should be allowed. I think it should be something that can be done. I think schools need to be more proactive about keeping the parties separate, fans versus players. I know that's not always easy, but like KU players, Nick Timberlake said today, hey, we have a plan. Like, we know if it looks like they're going to storm the court on us, everybody get to the sideline quickly, be ready to walk right into the locker room and be done with it. We've got a plan for that. But I understand why it looks bad when a player gets hurt and gets run into, and KU fans certainly have been upset for years about Jamari Traylor getting run into. That was inappropriate at the time at Kansas State. I just don't feel like we need, like, one bad example should completely curtail the entire thing.
I don't know, man. This is two high-profile examples of star players getting dump trucked by fans who aren't paying attention, because it happened to Caitlin Clark, who's the biggest star in women's college basketball earlier this year.
Probably all of college basketball.
No, yeah, you're not wrong. She is the biggest star in college basketball. Look, the bottom line is these kids aren't paying attention. These kids are running out there. They're on their phones. They're holding their phones up. They're not looking where they're going, and people are getting run over. And if you can't guarantee the safety of the players, because that is your job as arena security. You have to be able to guarantee the safety of the combatants, guarantee the safety of the players. And if you can't do that, then you can't have this. You can't allow anybody else on the court as long as there are still players on the court. You want to storm the court when the players are in the locker room? Go nuts. Have a party. Don't leave for hours. I don't care what you do at Lawrence Joel Coliseum when everybody is backstage. But you got to let the players get out of the way. And if you're not able to guarantee that the players are safe, then this is not something you can do anymore. I am all about college students having fun, have the time of your lives, celebrate with your classmates. But if you can't guarantee the safety of the players, then you can't do this. And that's where I'm at.
Coming up to wrap up 580 Sports Talk, we got the final word right after this. Time to wrap up 580 Sports Talk with a quick final word before we get to K-State hoops. You are up first, Dan.
That's why we're done early. We're making way for the Wildcats. They've got West Virginia tonight at Bramlage Coliseum. It's another must-win. Again, if you're going to get back into tournament consideration, if you're the Wildcats, A, you have to do it one bite at a time, one win at a time. B, you got to follow the same formula you followed Saturday against BYU. Defend the three-point line. Your stars have to be stars. Your bigs have to play well. If all of those things happen, K-State can get out of the octagon with another win tonight and move closer to the right side of the bubble conversation.
Big weekend for KU basketball on both the men's and women's side of things. The men, hey, I think they were well rested after that game that week without a midweek game. Looked like a pretty fresh team, even without Kevin McCullough. Nick Timberlake gives you anything close to that. KU's going to be just fine going forward. Also, shout out to the KU women winning the Sunflower Showdown and hopefully locking in a spot in this year's NCAA tournament. Smaya Nichols, whoo, she is a player. That's going to do it today for 580 Sports Talk. We'll be back with a full show tomorrow from 2 to 6. For Spencer, for Dan, I'm Brendan. We've got K-State basketball coming up next on 580 WIBW.